Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH The Flame Emperor episode number 29 to 33 based on novel. So let's start. Xiao Yan also looked at his patriarch Golden Dragon King in surprise. Obviously, if his patriarch Golden Dragon King hadn't reminded him like this, Xiao Yan himself would have forgotten. The two scrolls that were obtained from the ruins, one was the fighting skill scroll obtained by defeating the Guardian, and the other was torn by Xiao Yang from the bones of the owner of the ruins. Xiao Yang was extremely shocked by the hardness of the bones of the owner of the ruins, but fortunately, Xiao Yang was able to get this scroll under the baking of Su Shuiying's holy flame power. Thinking like this in his heart, Xiao Yang closed his eyes and calmed down, carefully sensing the scroll in his body that was rewarded by defeating the Guardian. Breakthrough. A wave of invisible fluctuations also spread from Xiao Yang's surroundings, and the fighting skills information in his mind surged out. Secret technique. Clone technique. Immortal rank intermediate. This fighting technique is called clone technique, which enables cultivators to create a clone that is exactly the same as the main body by relying on a trace of soul imprint, and the clone is controlled by the practitioner, and the death of the clone will not harm the practitioner. Produce any side effect. Xiao Yang's eyes lit up with just a few words of explanation. Maybe other people don't know the secret, only he knows the power of this fighting skill. This is a clone technique. Just from this short introduction, Xiao Yang felt that it was no less inferior to the soul avatar formed by the Emperor Realm Mortal Soul. The Emperor level Mortal level Soul avatar has the same strength and the same breath as Xiao Yang's real body. The two work together quite tacitly, but they also have huge flaws. If the entity is killed, then the feedback to Xiao Yang's body is also a huge amount of damage, ranging from serious injuries to the source. The 3000 thunders that Xiao Yang practiced before was a body fighting skill, but after all, it was a speed-type body fighting skill. When it was used to the extreme, only 3 vague figures appeared, which was completely different from the soul avatar of the Emperor Realm. Different. Master, are there different types of fighting skills? After a brief surprise, Xiao Yang also said solemnly. In addition to the basic level of fighting skills, there are also 6 categories of flying fighting skills: body fighting skills, secret skills, attacking fighting skills, defensive fighting skills and ceiling fighting skills. Flying fighting skills, as the name suggests, is that some predecessors used special techniques to temper the wings of certain magical beasts to seal them up, and practice the flying fighting skills to display their wings, but on the Dodi continent, they are basically stronger than Dowang or above. It is common to stand in the air, so the use of this flying fighting skill is also much less, but this thing is also precious. Movement fighting skills are just like the 3000 thunderbolts you practiced, known for their speed or some peculiar fighting skills. This kind of fighting skills is practiced by almost every strong person, but as far as I know, the movement skills are the most powerful fighting skills, can travel thousands of miles in an instant. Secret skills are divided into short-term strength enhancement and some bizarre fighting skills. The two are very similar to the 3 mysterious transformations of Skyfire you practiced and the clone technique in front of you. As for the attacking fighting skills, it is known for its powerful attacks, just like the Lotus of Silence formed by the fusion of the flames on your body. Defensive fighting skills, as the name suggests, is known for its strong defensive power. When the defensive power is stronger than the offensive power, the attack will naturally be broken without attacking. As for the so-called seal fighting skill, it is displayed by the 3 elders of the Mu family as you have seen before, relying on the strength of one individual or multiple people to isolate a certain space. Under the sealing fighting skill, anybody the fighting skills cannot be used, so there is a scene that you appeared before. The Golden Dragon King also smiled and said slowly, although the little Yenzi in front of him didn't know much, the Golden Dragon King was also willing to explain. There are so many types. Xiao Yang couldn't help smacking his lips. After all, he didn't know these things when he was on the Dochi continent. Now that you know it, how about trying this clone technique first? The Golden Dragon King was also speaking out. Obviously he also had expectations. Yeah. Xiao Yang responded gently, and then he also exercised all his vindictive energy and began to practice step by step according to the message. The so-called avatar technique is based on the power of the soul. Although there can only be one avatar cultivated by this avatar technique, Xiao Yang is not discouraged at all. After all, it can be very useful at critical moments, and this avatar is dead. They can't cause any damage to Xiao Yang, and at most it consumes some soul power. With a plan, Xiao Yang did not hesitate, and the huge soul power in his mind emerged. The huge soul power has obviously not recovered to its peak. After all, it is only a loss of an Emperor Realm mortal soul clone. Fortunately, it is not an entity, but an energy clone. Xiao Yang did not lose too much backlash. A tiny trace of soul power slowly shrank under Xiao Yang's strict control, and then was compressed by Xiao Yang, slowly turning into a light print the size of an eye. Bang! The light seal of the soul that was just about to succeed was also shattered. Seeing this, Xiao Yang also frowned slightly, and then repeated the steps just now. It was obvious that Xiao Yang was too impatient, so he failed. With the lessons of the first failure, Xiao Yang is also much more rigorous, slowly controlling the soul power to merge. The whole process is just right. Boom! As soon as the soul light seal was formed, it exuded not weak fluctuations. Xiao Yang also nodded with satisfaction. With this soul light imprint as the center of Xiao Yang's control of his clone, the clone he cultivated would not have any wrong thoughts. The Fenju in the body was running at a high speed, and then the milky white Do Qi in front of Xiao Yang slowly emerged from his body. This Do Qi tempered by Fenju was also improved in quality. The soul light seal is used as the control center, and then the Do Qi is used as the pillar, thus forming a clone. It's easy to say, but difficult to do. As soon as the milky white grudge and the soul light seal came into contact, they were arguing like a natural enemy. But fortunately, under Xiao Yang's subtle control, the soul light seal slowly leaked onto the Do Qi, and then a figure just like Xiao Yang appeared out of thin air. Ha ha ha, what kind of thing did you get? The Golden Dragon King also looked at the other Xiao Yang in front of him, smiling from ear to ear. Xiao Yang was also puzzled, then turned his eyes slightly, but found a rather strong Xiao Yang looking at him honestly. This is... Xiao Yang was also stunned. Although it was his first time trying, he wouldn't be able to identify such a big fat man. Xiao Yang, who was a little depressed, couldn't help feeling helpless when he saw the bloated other self in front of him. It seems that the fusion of soul light and Do Qi went wrong. Xiao Yang carefully sensed the other self in front of him and then said solemnly. Immediately, with a wave of his arm, the other Xiao Yang in front of him also turned into a puff of smoke and slowly disappeared. Knowing what went wrong, Xiao Yang is also starting over. The soul light seal was successfully condensed, and then the Do Qi all over his body was suppressed by Xiao Yang when he passed by Xiao Yang, and then the soul light seal and Do Qi slowly intertwined. This time, there was no previous resistance, the two merged with each other, the soul light was imprinted on his forehead, and the majestic fighting Qi also slowly outlined an extremely delicate appearance. Boom boom boom. With the sound of a voice, Xiao Yang saw the figure condensed by both the soul light and the grudge in front of him slowly appear. A short and small condensed version of Xiao Yang was born again. Xiao Yang glanced at it casually, and then he was not in a hurry, and slowly condensed. As the saying goes, everything is difficult at the beginning, and it is true. It is only a matter of merging the power of the 22 different fire sources. Of course, it will be difficult at first, but after the first fusion, Xiao Yang is using it. The fusion time and control will also be greatly enhanced. Therefore, cultivating the clone technique also takes time. After all, this is the reason why you can't make a big fat man with one bite. After the successive failures, Xiao Yang seemed to have mastered the trick, and then his eyes became clear. Boom boom boom. Looking at the figure in front of him, Xiao Yang looked at it carefully, only to find that the other self from this clone had the same aura and even appearance. Success! Xiao Yang was also extremely excited. Don't be too happy, although it is successful, you must try to see the strength of this avatar, otherwise, an embroidered pillow will not be of much use. The Golden Dragon King also said with great interest. Hearing this, Xiao Yang also nodded. His master Jin Longwang was right, although the other self in front of him was exactly the same as himself, but the powerhouses rely on their breath to distinguish their opponents, and appearance is not so important. Xiao Yang also stared at him tightly, and then said, "Attack me." Xiao Yang's order was only given, and the avatar seemed to be alive. It attacked Xiao Yang. Above the terrifying fist, milky white flames instantly covered and attacked Xiao Yang. Seeing such a ferocious attack, Xiao Yang also nodded in satisfaction, and then the terrifying fist was also in vain. He also knew that although it was a clone, the fist he had just displayed was not far behind. It seems to be a success. Although it has experienced a lot of failures, it is fortunate that it is a success, and it seems that this clone is really good, and the most important point is that the soul power is weaker than yours. I can't find the flaw in this clone. The Golden Dragon King said with satisfaction. Xiao Yang also nodded in satisfaction, and then muttered to himself, "How can I take this back?" After all, Xiao Yang tried it, but this avatar could not be put into the ring, which made Xiao Yang stumped. He couldn't always take him by his side in the future, or it would be condensed during the battle, but that would be rare. There was a suddenness, and Xiao Yang also believed that others were not fools in the future battles, and would definitely not give Xiao Yang such an opportunity to consolidate his avatars in the battle. Then Xiao Yang's mind moved, and Xiao Yang's eyes dimmed in front of him, and immediately disappeared into a stream of light. Huh! Where did it go? Xiao Yang was also frightened by this sudden scene, and then carefully felt where the clone just now went. After feeling it carefully, Xiao Yang also discovered that the clone he had just cultivated was lying quietly in his soul realm. Come out. Following Xiao Yang's order, the avatar also appeared in front of him. Xiao Yang was also surprised, because he had never heard that the soul realm can hold things. The soul realm has always been the most vulnerable part of human beings, and this cannot tolerate any loss. Hey, you don't know this, the human soul is the most vulnerable place, but after cultivating the soul power will change, from the original soul power to the soul realm, and the legendary Fairyland the soul is even more powerful, turning over the rain is an instant thing. The soul realm can accommodate some other souls in addition to its own soul power, but unless the host allows it, other souls cannot live in it. The Golden Dragon King also explained. So that's the case. Xiao Yang was also stunned. Xiao Yang also nodded, indicating that his master, the Golden Dragon King, understood, and after a few minutes, a yellowed scroll appeared on Xiao Yang's finger. The yellowed scroll seemed to have existed for quite a few years, and just after it appeared in Xiao Yang's hands, Xiao Yang felt a strange wave within the scroll. Xiao Yang tried to open the somewhat yellowed scroll with his backhand, but he was helpless, because no matter what Xiao Yang did, he couldn't open it. In desperation, Xiao Yang was also gradually defeated, and then his pupils shrank tightly, and a slightly milky white flame appeared on his fingertips. As soon as the milky white flame appeared, it was slowly attached to the yellowish scroll under Xiao Yang's control. Boom boom boom. Let the terrifying milky white flame burn on its scroll. The yellowish scroll is also motionless. At this time, Xiao Yang also frowned. Obviously, he had never encountered such a situation before, and he immediately became thoughtful. Seeing that the milky white flame was useless, Xiao Yang also put it away, and then the terrifying soul power in the soul realm spewed out. Since you can't open it with bare hands, and the flames in your body can't burn, then the power of your soul can always be opened. Xiao Yang thought so in his heart. The Golden Dragon King floating in the air, I cast his gaze on the yellowish scroll, and then I couldn't help but murmured after seeing Xiao Yang's thoughts and ideas that he didn't open. Why does it smell familiar? Contrary to Xiao Yang's expectations, even the huge soul force did not open the yellowish scroll, and then Xiao Yang calmed down and checked the scroll carefully. The yellowish scroll should have existed for a long time, because Xiao Yang's eyesight naturally discovered that the scroll was originally supposed to be silver, but now it has turned yellow, obviously because of time. On the scroll, a thin thread slowly wrapped around it, and then it was such a thin thread, but it made Xiao Yang devastated. Hearing this, Xiao Yang also looked at the master floating in the air with great interest. Actually, it's easy to open this thing. It only takes a drop of your blood. The Golden Dragon King also smiled at Xiao Yang's impatient look. Yeah. Xiao Yang was also stunned. Then Xiao Yang gritted his teeth, a drop of blood appeared on his finger, and then swept away towards the yellowish scrolled NOVLB //in.C///OM. The blood just fell on the yellowish scroll seemed to be guided, and the thin thread wrapped around it slowly opened. An ancient breath permeated the cave. It is said that there are some strong or ancient things that need to drop blood to recognize their masters, so it is different from the method you used before. The Golden Dragon King also explained. When Xiao Yang heard this, he also laughed. Then he also stared carefully at the yellowed scroll in front of him, and a huge light group appeared in the cave accompanied by an ancient aura. The light group vaguely turned into a phantom figure, and then the pair of eyes slowly opened, and a terrifying aura like a sleeping dragon also emanated from his body. Xiao Yang was also stunned by this terrifying aura. After all, neither the Yueyu he had seen before nor the Cyan woman before, the aura on his body was not so strong, just a residual aura would not be so strong. So terrifying, I can't imagine how powerful this peak moment in front of me will be. The Golden Dragon King was also staring at the empty figure in front of him in amazement. If something went wrong, he would shoot. Hey, after waiting for so many years, I finally met someone who barely passed the test. The figure of nothingness also spoke slightly, and then looked at Xiao Yang with interest. Senior, this is... Xiao Yang also asked in surprise. I have waited for tens of thousands of years in order to pass on my mantle. Void figure slowly said. Hearing this, Xiao Yang was also overjoyed, because there are always some arrogant strong men in this world. They are hidden from the world. When they are damaged, they will record what they have learned in their life, and then they will not let their unique skills disappear. World. Hearing this, the Golden Dragon King also felt relieved. Although the powerful Emperor-level mortal-level soul power, although the spiritual power is still developing, it is still reluctant. Okay, let's not talk nonsense anymore, I don't have much time. I'm a battle formation master. The nihilistic figure also said. A Do formation master? Xiao Yan shook his head in surprise. Obviously he didn't know very well that he came from the lower realm. How is that possible? The Golden Dragon King was also shocked. However, although the Golden Dragon King was also floating in midair, the emptiness seemed to have not been noticed. After speaking, he calmed down, as if giving Xiao Yang some time to think. On the Do-Di continent, the only main theme is to cultivate Do-Chi, but on top of this, there are 4 sub-professionals. Apothecary Master, Poison Master, Foundry Master, Battle Formation Master. The Golden Dragon King also looked at Xiao Yang with a blank expression. Alchemists, as the name implies, are able to refine all kinds of magical medicine pills, and their status is extremely prominent in Do-Di continent. Moreover, they have an extremely powerful appeal, and high-level pharmacists are almost always responding, because no matter who they are, they can hope that the pharmacist can owe them a favor. If there is a need in the future, the pharmacist is also willing to make a medicinal pill for it, otherwise it would be more difficult for ordinary people to make a high-level medicinal pill than to ascend to the sky. However, the requirements for becoming a pharmacist are extremely harsh. Normal people only have one type of attribute, while a pharmacist must have 2 types, and their own attributes must belong to fire, and the fire must be mixed with a trace of wood energy for catalytic effect, and there must be excellent soul perception, 3 conditions for refining medicine: material, fire, and soul perception. The material is all kinds of heaven and earth treasures. The fire can be Do-Chi flame or animal fire, preferably the fire the venerable fire, or the holy flame like the overlord of heaven and earth. Poison Master. Poison Master combines Miao Border GU technique with poison technique, insect control technique, divided into Poison Master and GU Master. Poison Master uses all kinds of strange poison to attack the enemy through the mysterious use of poison. Killing people is an invisible terror, while GU Masters use GU techniques to heal wounds and prolong their lives, all in the midst of applause, and can control 5 kinds of GU insects, such as Holy Scorpion, Jade Toad, Spirit Snake, Wind Centipede, and Sky Spider, which are not passed down to Miao Jiang. Secret skills. Forgers rely on their own strength to forge magical weapons. People call them founders, and it is said that they can condense the energy of heaven and earth into strange runes, and these runes, because of their different structures, have with different abilities. If a rune is inscribed, the weapon's toughness and sharpness will be upgraded to a new level. The legendary fairy artifact is from the hand of the foundry. As for the Battle Formation Master, it only existed in ancient times, and I haven't seen it for many years. However, one thing is certain, among these 4 professions, Do Formation Master is undoubtedly the most powerful. The Golden Dragon King kept explaining to Xiao Yang. Then Xiao Yang was a little surprised when he heard it. No wonder they were Do Formation Masters. They encountered many forms of formation in the ruins. The so-called Battle Formation Master is to rely on the strength in his body to activate the spiritual formation, thus forming a means of attacking and defending. The spiritual formation needs to depict the core inscription. The more powerful the spiritual formation, the more there are also more core inscriptions, but once such a spiritual formation is provoked, the power will be no trivial matter. However, the Do Formation Master is powerful, but the most basic thing to get started with is mental power. The Golden Dragon King also spoke slowly. Mental power? Xiao Yang was at a loss. Obviously, he only knew that he had soul power. As for that mental power, he had never heard of it. It's normal. After all, these are ancient secrets. It's normal that you don't know, but soul power and spiritual power are completely different. Just like your left and right hands, the soul power is the left hand, then the spiritual power is the right hand, and the 2 complement each other. It seems that I found a treasure this time. The Golden Dragon King also laughed. Hearing this, Xiao Yang also opened his eyes and stared at the empty figure in front of him. Xiao Yang was surprised at first. He didn't expect to have such amazing 4 major occupations. He had never heard of casting masters and Do Formation Masters on Do-Chi continent before. Here on Do-Di continent, it really wasn't on Do-Chi continent. Comparable. Do-Chi cultivation has led to many side branches, and this Do Formation Master is one of them. However, this profession not only needs a certain amount of strength to support it, but also requires extraordinarily strict spiritual power. Therefore, the other 3 occupations are relatively scarce occupations. Senior, please enlighten me. After a little thought, Xiao Yang said respectfully with both hands clenched. What a polite little guy. The nihilistic figure also said after being silent for a while. Xiao Yang also looked at the empty figure in front of him in a trance. Although he didn't know the exact strength of the Golden Dragon King, he thought that he was standing at the peak of the Great Thousand World just like his master Tuor Shagudi, and he made his master, who had always been high-handed and low-handed. The Golden Dragon King can also praise so much, which can only show the strength of the fighting formation master in front of him. Moreover, what Xiao Yang needs is really strong strength, in order to find the unsolved mysteries of his family, and to find his wife. In this strange Dodi continent, he needs his own efforts. Although Xiao Yang has a burning decision, he can devour Sheng Yang to greatly increase his strength, but after all, Sheng Yang is too precious. So far Xiao Yang has no news, so Xiao Yang is also impatient. It's not easy to become a battle formation master. Although you have barely achieved your mental strength, the pain in it won't be the slightest bit. The shadowy figure also muttered worriedly. Senior, don't worry, no matter how difficult it is, I will persevere. Xiao Yang also smiled slightly. Xiao Yang suffered from the humiliation of breaking off his marriage on the Dochi continent, and he already possessed extraordinary determination. Then, by chance, he met his master, Venerable Medicine. Xiao Yang's willpower has been strengthened, so no matter how much suffering, Xiao Yang is not afraid. The so-called fighting formation master is to use mental power to describe scrolls, which is somewhat similar to the fighting skill scrolls. Most of the scrolls used to record fighting skills are the furs of some high-level magical beasts, but the production of fighting skill scrolls is to record their cultivation methods. On top of it, the scrolls used by the battle formation masters are more precious, and the scrolls used by the formation masters to record the formations will only be white. Not only that, in addition to these basics, core inscriptions need to be engraved on the scrolls used by the formation masters. The more core inscriptions are engraved, the more powerful the formation will be. A true formation mage can besiege millions of troops in an instant. Looking at your huge soul power already reaching the mortal level of the Emperor realm, the spiritual power and the soul power complement each other, or you can reach the supreme realm in the future. Speaking of which, I am looking forward to your future achievements. After all, I was just cultivating my spiritual power back then, and I forgot about my soul power. The void figure also spoke slowly. After Xiao Yang heard these words word for word, Xiao Yang was only deeply shocked. The time is limited, let's condense the inscription of life for you first. Void figure also said. Just after the void figure finished speaking, the old fingers slowly lifted up, and then a white light reached Xiao Yang's mind. Relax. The nihilistic figure also found that the soul force in Xiao Yang's body seemed to be resisting, and the white light above his fingers was difficult to move, and then he said, "Yeah." Xiao Yang also responded. The white light came straight to his head. Xiao Yang just felt that the soul power in his body seemed to meet an enemy, and he frantically resisted. Xiao Yang was also stunned by this sudden action, and then frantically suppressed the huge soul force that was about to move. The white light also saw that the soul power in the latter's body seemed to be temporarily suppressed, and it also slowly disappeared into Xiao Yang's mind. As the white light entered, Xiao Yang, who was originally calm, also shrank his pupils tightly, because he felt that the seemingly inconspicuous white light burst into his mind with a monstrous power. When the white light entered a place called Niwen Palace next to Xiao Yang's soul realm, a terrifying wave erupted, and Xiao Yang's calm face was also hideous. In the Niwen Palace, the place that was originally the size of a finger suddenly grew stronger under the slow development of the white light. Every time the white light revolved in Xiao Yang's body, Xiao Yang's eyes became fierce. As time passed by, Xiao Yang's veins had already burst out, and his eyes were bloodshot. Now the training methods of Do formation masters have been lost for a long time. If you can't hold on to it, give up. The figure of nothingness also said. No. Use. Xiao Yang also gritted his teeth and spat out a few words, and then there were different degrees of bleeding from his teeth, nose, and mouth. Hey! The Golden Dragon King also looked at Xiao Yang's appearance, and then his eyes couldn't help but think of himself. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. Accompanied by the small and pitiful spiritual power in the Niwen Palace revolving and accelerating, a peculiar voice also echoed in his mind. Bang bang bang. With 3 weak voices, Xiao Yang's Niwen Palace also opened up a place that was enough to accommodate the inscription of life. Xiao Yang's eyebrows jumped violently. The so-called method of opening up is the most important way to become a Do formation master, because only when his mental power has truly condensed into an inscription of life, can he truly call it a fighter. Would you like to take a break? Xiao Yang was relieved that the space in Xiao Yang's body that was large enough to accommodate the inscription of his destiny had been opened up. No need, do your best. Xiao Yang also said. The void figure also nodded with satisfaction. Condensing the inscriptions of life requires a lot of effort. Then a pair of old palms slowly lifted up, and a pure white mysterious rune also appeared in front of Xiao Yang. Just as the white mysterious rune appeared, Xiao Yang felt that there was a supreme power standing in front of him. Because Xiao Yang felt the slightest solidification in the depths of his soul, too strong. The evaluation given by Xiao Yang is, this inscription is called divine movement. Although it's only a quarter of the divine inscription, if you cultivate it, then you won't have any problems dealing with Dozian. As for the other 3, I don't know. Wherever you are, you will naturally meet if you have fate, and you can't force it if you don't. Shrink your soul power. The inscription of your life is about to enter your body, the void figure also shouted loudly. Hearing that, Xiao Yang also compressed all the huge soul power in his body into his soul realm. The Niwen Palace, which is opposite to the soul realm, also slowly trembled, as if he was very happy to see that white rune. Boom boom boom. As soon as the white rune touched Xiao Yang's forehead, the clan lines on Xiao Yang's forehead burst out, as if resisting the entry of the white rune. Could this Taoist language be? The nihilistic figure also widened his eyes and looked at the ethnic pattern on Xiao Yang's forehead. Seeing this, Xiao Yang was also surprised that he didn't find the empty figure in front of him, and then his mind moved, and the clan pattern became silent. Without the resistance of the clan marks, the white rune entered the body smoothly. Just after entering the Niwen Palace in Xiao Yang's body, the soul realm on the side also erupted with monstrous power, because in Xiao Yang's perception, with the white life when the inscription entered the Niwen Palace, the originally huge soul realm was divided into two. So no wonder no matter how Xiao Yang suppressed that terrifying soul power. Damn it. Xiao Yang also noticed that this soul force was madly resisting the entry of the white inscription of destiny. If he did not deal with the soul force of this confrontation, then Xiao Yang's body would be exploded and killed by these two terrifying forces. Damn, I still don't believe it. Since it's the power I cultivated, how can it be reverse? Xiao Yang also shrank his pupils tightly, and then his body covered his body with Do Qi, and his body and mind were also controlled by the crazy soul power in his body. Boom boom boom. Xiao Yang also tried his best to suppress the soul power in his body, but the soul power in his body has also reached the Emperor Realm mortal level, and the soul power is strong to a certain extent, so naturally he will not give up the territory of the soul realm NOVLB//C//OM. Go back to me. Xiao Yang was obviously also angry. This soul power could not be suppressed by eating, so what would happen if his body was indestructible like this? The huge soul power in Xiao Yang's body also fell silent under his extreme control, and then the white divine inscription was slowly imprinted in the Niwen Palace. The Shandong inscription seal had just arrived in the Niwen Palace, and it was obviously as if he had arrived at his own home. Although the strong mental pressure landed on Xiao Yang's mind at first, it was also fleeting. Xiao Yang was also panting heavily. This seemingly simple moment made Xiao Yang sweat profusely. Only Xiao Yang knows what he has experienced. Although he does not know the level of the so-called magical inscription seal, when he entered Xiao Yang's body, Xiao Yang was dazzled and fascinated. He could feel it from the divine moving inscription seal. This decision is not trivial. Originally, I thought that the huge soul power in your body could be suppressed by some other means. After all, we did not have a precedent for dual cultivation of soul power and spiritual power before, but I didn't expect you to suppress it. Void figure also said slowly. Obviously this will also improve Xiao Yang's evaluation. The next step is to inscribe the core inscription. Then, this thing can prey on disposable things, remember to put it away every time you cast the formation, otherwise there should be very few things in the world now. As he spoke, a white scroll appeared in his hand. By urging the divine movement seal in your body, you can engrave core inscriptions on this scroll, but how many core inscriptions can be engraved depends on the strength of your mental power. However, the power of the soul is the power of the soul, and the power of the soul is not the power of the soul. In my opinion, it is good to condense a few. The figure of nothingness also said, obviously this is not to underestimate Xiao Yang, after all, Xiao Yang is a spiritual power. Neither practice. Hearing that, Xiao Yang also closed his eyes and rested his mind, and then slowly moved the divine movement that had just calmed down. Xiao Yang's mental power slowly flowed out along the Niwen Palace, and then moved towards the white scroll in front of him. Mental power is invisible and colorless, and it is exactly the same as soul power, but Xiao Yang feels that the relationship between the two is not so simple. With the core inscription. The appearance of a core inscription made a strong aura of confusion on the white scroll. With the passage of time, another core inscription appeared. When there were 100 inscriptions, Xiao Yang's forehead was also covered with sweat. After all, Xiao Yang's mental power was also weak and pitiful. To be able to condense 100 core inscriptions for the first time, the nihilistic figure was also surprised. You must know that in the ancient times, the first time to condense 50 core inscriptions was a person with outstanding talent. Condensed a full 100, how to make him not surprised? Hoo. Xiao Yang also looked at the 100 core inscriptions on the white scroll, and nodded with satisfaction, and then the avatar in his soul realm was instantly summoned, and he also wanted to try this first cohesion. How powerful is the power of the attack formation that comes out? The avatar Xiao Yang just appeared, and then the dull eyes also regained their brilliance. Seeing this, Xiao Yang waved the white scroll in his hand, and then shrouded Xiao Yang towards his clone. The white scroll just enveloped the avatar Xiao Yang, and it enveloped the surrounding space of hundreds of meters. A strong aura appeared, and then viciously attacked the avatar Xiao Yang. The seemingly terrifying attack came on Xiao Yang's body, and it was like a vase. It seems that if you want to trap a 3-star Do Emperor peak or a 4-star Do Emperor powerhouse, you need at least 1,000 core inscriptions. Seeing this, Xiao Yang also put away his avatar, and then looked at the formation in front of him and muttered to himself. But it's really good, it's just a bit of mental energy. Xiao Yang clapped his palms, and while he was amazed, he was a little regretful. If his mental power was like soul power, if he was more tyrannical, maybe he would be able to fly in the sky like those legendary powerhouses, killing them in a flash. Millions of enemies. Now, I am afraid that there are not many core inscriptions condensed, and their spiritual power will be exhausted. Putting away the white scroll, it is obviously not a one-time use thing, it can be used continuously, and it is also a precious thing. Then Xiao Yang observed the natal moving seal in the Niwen Palace. The seal is currently suspended in the Niwen Palace, but the seal looks too vague and bleak. Obviously, it is still a little uncomfortable to accommodate Xiao Yang's body just now, and it is only a quarter of the time, so this needs to be done. Xiao Yang's training for a long time can be regarded as a complete solidification of the life seal. Xiao Yang couldn't help but smile when he looked at the seal of life in the Niwen Palace. From now on, he can also be regarded as a formal fighting formation master, but obviously he is not interested in engraving armors or weapons. He is not very interested, but he is very concerned about the magical effect of mental power. This thing, like the owner in the ruins before, is easy to use for trapping people and killing people. Moreover, if he cultivated to the depths, he would not be weaker than some strong fighters who cultivated Do Qi, and waving his hand to kill is just a matter of thought. However, compared to the real fighting spirit, mental power and soul power are obviously more illusory. If there is no talent in this area, I am afraid it is really difficult to make any progress. Now that his master, the Golden Dragon King, has revealed a trace of holy flame, it is much simpler than Xiao Yang looking for a needle in a haystack. Xiao Yang became more and more sure of the holy flame on the Qinglian woman. There must be some unknown secrets between the strange fire in his body and the holy flame. Of course, this secret can only be discovered by Xiao Yang himself. But the power of holy flame is really powerful. The power of the source of the holy flame is even more powerful and outrageous. Although Xiao Yang also tried to use the strange fire in his body to activate the power of the source, he did not have the same power as the holy flame, which also made Xiao Yang look forward to the holy flame. Hotter. Okay, let's go back to Yu's house first. With them here, it can save a lot of trouble. The Golden Dragon King also said. Hearing that, Xiao Yang also nodded, and then felt the avatar in the soul realm in his body, the divine inscription seal in the Niwen Palace, and was quite satisfied. Obviously, the inheritance of this battle formation master is the biggest treasure in the ruins, and the blood of the emperor is insignificant compared to this. Xiao Yang also laughed, then got up and walked towards the Yu family. The huge soul power in the body and the spiritual power are also far away from each other, but Xiao Yang can feel the truth. There seems to be some connection between the two. He can only rely on himself to cultivate his mind and understanding. Left the cave in an instant, and flew towards the Yu family. Father, Xiao Yang will be fine. Yu said to her father Yu in the Yu family compound. Don't worry, since Xiao Yang can get rid of the Mu family and Wuqing's pursuit, and make Wuqing in a mess, he must not be an ordinary person. Yu was also quite satisfied with Xiao Yang. Not to mention, the great fortune that Xiao Yang obtained within the ruins made Yu admire him with admiration, not to mention that Xiao Yang escaped from the Mu family's arrest by himself. ~1 Yu and the others first went to the depths of the demonic beast mountains to find Xiao Yang, but the search failed, and then followed by the shocking explosion in Wuqing. Obviously, they were also inseparable from Xiao Yang. Yu couldn't calm down when she heard the words. They went to the waterfall in the demonic beast mountains to check, but they didn't find any trace of Xiao Yang, and some were just unrecognizable scenes. Yu clearly remembered that the water flow of the waterfall was very huge, and it would be twisted and staggered by the power of the terrifying flame. This really surprised them, so they couldn't help worrying about Xiao Yang. After the search was fruitless, the three of them also returned to the Yu family. The front foot had just left the waterfall in the demonic beast mountains, and the direction of Wuqing exploded into the sky. At the same time, the three of them also remembered what Xiao Yang said about giving Wuqing a great gift. Yu walked slowly in the lobby, obviously very worried. Yu also looked at her precious daughter helplessly, and the third elder had already gone out to deal with other affairs. As time passed by, a handsome man in a hat appeared at the back door of Yu's house. You're back. Yu also exclaimed. Where's your sister? She has already gone back. The two also talked in the same way. Naturally, Xiao Yang couldn't tell Yu about Qing Yuan. First, Xiao Yang didn't know what to say. Could it be that Qing Yuan was taken away? Second, the less people knew about Qing Yuan, the better. After all, knowing more is sometimes a bad thing. It's fine. Yu Yu also hurriedly interjected, and then looked at Xiao Yang and found that Xiao Yang's soul power seemed to be a little weak, and immediately thought about it. You did the explosion in Wucheng, right? Yu Yu asked. A little gift for them. Hearing this, Xiao Yang also laughed. After all, although he didn't want to cause trouble, if they did get him, they couldn't just let them go. The explosion of Wucheng should be given to them. A little warning from them. What about the ones in the demonic beast mountains? That's a new fighting skill that I experimented with. You are really ruthless, but I like your temperament. Yu Yu also laughed loudly. After all, Wucheng is such a local emperor, but I haven't seen them so embarrassed for a long time. This time Xiao Yang's big gift, Wucheng in a short period of time, the vitality is also greatly damaged. NOVLB//gent/C//OM. Have you decided to join that sect? The three of them chatted and laughed in the lobby, and then Yu Yu said as if remembering something. Burning Incense Pavilion. Xiao Yang said lightly. Funxiang Pavilion, where should it be suitable for someone with a very strong fire attribute, and not to mention other things, even if you are an alchemist, you can also gain a good position in it. Yu Yu also thought about it. However, although you joined the Funxiang Pavilion, my daughter joined the Wanhua Pavilion. Although the two pavilions are opposites, you both take care of each other when you go out. Yu Yu said with a smile. The implication is also obvious. Senior, don't worry, Xiao Yang naturally knows this. How could Xiao Yang not understand Yu Yu's meaning? He immediately agreed. Although the Funxiang Pavilion and the Wanhua Pavilion are sects that oppose each other, they are also in the same world of Shentian-san, so the distance between the two pavilions is also very close, so it is reasonable for you to take care of each other. Okay, I see that your soul strength is a little weak, then go down and take a good rest. In a few days, Shen San-san will send an envoy to pick you up. Before that, you should have a good rest. Yu Yu also found out. Xiao Yang's soul power seems to be a little wrong, and he understands it in his heart, so he speaks. Yeah. The two responded at the same time. Xiao Yang and Yueru also returned to their respective wooden houses one after another, and then on the bed of the wooden house, Xiao Yang sat cross-legged with his eyes closed, his hands made strange handprints in front of his chest heaved slightly, and with every breath, a perfect cycle is formed, and during the breath cycle, the soul power on the forehead is also quietly drifting out. Strange, this soul power and spiritual power seem to have a similar relationship, but they exist independently. Since the soul power can be cultivated through the soul formula, then the spiritual power should be similar, but where can I find the spiritual power training formula? Xiao Yang also muttered to himself. Don't worry. After Shen San-san, everything will work out. It's useless to worry too much now. The Golden Dragon King also said slowly. When Xiao Yang closed his eyes to cultivate, thinking about the connection between soul power and spiritual power, the ancient ring on his finger glowed slightly, and then fell silent. He let out a sigh of relief. Xiao Yang's eyes suddenly opened, and a wave of soul power that had just been several times stronger appeared. Soul strength has also recovered 8 or 9 times out of 10. Shun Shun sensed the soul realm on his forehead. Xiao Yang's face had a slight smile, and he really went out. Strength is the best guarantee, because no one knows what will happen in the next second. The cultivation of spiritual power, talent, is the most important, which is why the illusory figure is so moved when he sees the spiritual talent in Xiao Yang's body. Senior, how do you cultivate spiritual power? And are there any ranks of spiritual power warriors? After thinking about it, he took back his spiritual power and the white scroll, and asked softly. The cultivation of spiritual power mainly relies on will. Before the empty figure could finish speaking, it dissipated in this cave. Xiao Yang also bowed to the vanishing figure, and then looked depressed. Xiao Yang is also depressed. Although the inscriptions of life have been condensed, and the formation of formation has also been learned, but not to mention the hierarchical system of spiritual power, what about the cultivation method of spiritual power? If you don't know how to cultivate your spiritual power, how can you improve your spiritual power? Forget it, let's take one step at a time. Xiao Yang also raised his head again. After all, the illusory figure had also disappeared, so he had no choice. Ever since he came to Dodi continent, he had a feeling of being in the way, but it will not be like this from now on, because Xiao Yang is also familiar with Dodi continent these days, and he respects the strong just like Dochi continent. So there is nothing to be afraid of. Is there a way to cultivate spiritual power? Where should there be? The Golden Dragon King also opened his mouth and said. From the moment when the illusory figure appeared just now, the Golden Dragon King, his master, seemed to be lost in thought and thinking about something. NOVLB//gent/C//OM. Master, are you alright? These small things naturally couldn't escape Xiao Yang's eyes. It's okay, since everything has been dealt with, then the messenger from Shen Santian is about to come to pick him up. The Golden Dragon King also said. Master, where did you just say the way to cultivate spiritual power? Xiao Yang also asked eagerly. Obviously, The attraction of this battle formation master is really not small. Just imagine, during the battle, he unexpectedly threw a siege to the enemy. The formation of, so as to cover Xiao Yang's fusion of the Lotus of Annihilation, this is Burning Incense Pavilion. Ads by Pub Future. The world is huge, and there are so many sects of cultivation, which are inexhaustible. Every sect has its essence and is worth learning. However, due to the thousands of sects, the views of the sects are getting deeper and deeper, and many sects are hostile to each other, making many sects have fallen behind. Funxiang Pavilion is a detached force on the Xianling continent, and its strength is unquestionable. It is the most peculiar place in the Xianling continent, because the students it recruits are divided into two types. One is those who cultivate Do Qi, and the other is ordinary students, specializing in educating people and literature. Other sects only accept practitioners, which is why the Funxiang Pavilion ranks last in the Xianling continent, but it is the most popular place. And in Dudi continent, weapons are also very important. There are 4 types of weapons on Dudi continent, namely Divine Artifact, Immortal Artifact, Spiritual Artifact and Mortal Artifact. Ordinary Artifact is the most common, and there are only a few artifacts in the entire world, and they are things that can't be met. 4 Immortal Artifacts, they are all forged or tempered weapons by some fighting immortal level powerhouses. They are very domineering and extremely rare. Not much room. And the so-called spiritual tools are made by the foundry after refining the weapons to the mortal tools, and then further training. There are many ways to refine the weapons, and there are 2 most common ones. The first one is used by most people in the world. The method is to use one's own cultivation base to forcibly inject the cultivation base vindictive energy into one's original mortal weapon. After a long period of tempering, its power will be greatly increased, and then it will cross the boundary of the mortal weapon and become a spiritual weapon. The power of the spiritual tools of method cultivation is very powerful, but unfortunately it takes too much time and cultivation. Without strong will and strong fighting spirit as the back, obviously it will not succeed, so this is also why many people are unwilling to work hard to refine spiritual tools. The second is the magic weapon refining method. Generally, it is to forcefully add living souls or the souls of some magical beasts to one's own mortal tools, so as to increase the power of one's mortal tools and thus achieve the power of spiritual tools. It is a pity that it is extremely vicious, and is despised by the great thousand world. The people of the demon race love to use this method the most, because this method is the fastest and most labor-saving, and it is much faster than the great thousand world cultivating spiritual tools. Looking at this ancient ruler of different fire in your hand, I think it has reached the level of a spiritual tool. Since we are going to Shentian-san, there is one thing you must keep in mind, that is, all things in the world, in addition to humans, there are other spiritual beings who are cultivating their true self, hoping to transform into human beings. But in the eyes of human beings, they are aliens, and they are called only human beings. They are demons and ghosts. These supernatural beings, like humans, are divided into good and evil. Not all demons, ghosts, and ghosts are bad, just as not all people are good people. So don't be slaughtered by the world's demons. If you are deceived by the words, you must distinguish the good and evil of the other party by yourself, and then make a decision. The most evil in the world is not those alien spirits, but the human beings themselves. You must remember this sentence. Xiao Yan carefully savored the words of his master, the Golden Dragon King, and said with a slight smile, "Don't worry, I won't be the same as those people." After speaking, he looked around slightly, and seemed to have a feeling of reluctance. Xiao Yang already knew what his master, the Golden Dragon King, said, that there are many strange creatures in the great thousand worlds who are also working hard to cultivate, and eventually cultivated to become like a fire spirit. And the holy flame I mentioned is also related to this incense pavilion. Ads by Pub Future. So you must join the burning incense pavilion. The Golden Dragon King spoke slowly like a loving old man. Yeah. Wen Yang Shengyang Xiao Yang also shrank his pupils tightly, and then looked at his master, the Golden Dragon King, with fiery eyes. Since coming to Do Di continent, apart from seeing the power of holy flame on the Qinglian woman in the ruins, Xiao Yang has never seen any holy flame, and there is no news at all. After a long while, Xiao Yang shook his head in satisfaction, climbed out of the bed physically and mentally exhausted, and stretched his numb hands and feet. Although Do Di powerhouses generally don't care too much about this kind of fatigue, there is nothing wrong with Xiao Yang now. He stretched his body and lay down on the bed. A few days passed slowly, and when the first light of the morning sun shone on the earth, the Yu family became quite serious, because today the messenger of Shen Santian was about to arrive. Xiao Yang has been resting as usual these past few days and then conditioning his soul power. Today, he is simply in the room. An old voice came from outside the room. "Elder Xiao, Patriarch Yu, please go to the hall." Xiao Yang was also a dedicated elder who stayed in the Yu family after Yu helped him so much before, so this title is not surprising. Yeah. He replied casually, changed his clothes. Xiao Yang walked out of the room, smiled at an old man in white outside the room and said, "Let's go, Butler Moon." Looking at Xiao Yang's face, the old man in the white shirt nodded kindly, and the moment he turned around, his cloudy old eyes flashed a touch of envy that was not easy to detect. Alas, this little friend Xiao Yang can possess such a powerful strength at such a young age. The key is to be an alchemist with a high rank. This kind of identity is also envied by ordinary people. He followed the old butler through the backyard, and finally stopped outside the solemn reception hall. The butler first signaled Xiao Yang to wait for a while, then knocked on the door respectfully, and then gently pushed in. The hall is very spacious, and there are quite a few people in it. The ones sitting at the top are Yu and the third elder, who are familiar with Xiao Yang. There are also a few old people with indifferent expressions. Elders of the clan. Under the left hand of the 5 people, there are some elders who have the right to speak and are not weak in the family. Beside them, there are also some younger generations who have performed outstandingly in the family. Yueru is among them, and seeing Xiao Yang is also cannot help but smiled knowingly. On the other side, there is a stranger sitting in the same position opposite Yueyu. Presumably he is the messenger of Shen Santian that Yueyu said before. Some doubtful eyes swept over the stranger, a simple middle-aged man in a cloth robe. The middle-aged man and Yu did not know what they were talking about, with a smile on his face and a look of high spirits. Is this the kid who obtained the great fortune in the ruins? The middle-aged man also turned his attention to Xiao Yang and asked. The transition is over. Next will be a new starting point and a new story. I plan to integrate some new elements, such as attributes, formations, laws, fields, weapons, people, demons, gods, immortals, demons, ghosts, etc. Many new elements. Pig's feet are still Xiao Yang. As for the people on the Dochi continent, they will gradually appear, so everyone can look forward to it slowly. That's right, brother Hu, it's this kid. Yu also said, and then her soul force quietly signaled to Xiao Yang. Not bad, this huge soul power is beyond the reach of ordinary people, and I see that the fire attribute in this kid seems to be an alchemist. The middle-aged man also frowned slightly. Obviously this first Xiao Yang was a little surprised. Senior praised me wrongly, but it's just a fluke. How dare you compare yourself to your senior? Xiao Yang also got up after hearing this, and then clasped his fists towards the middle-aged man. But my heart was shocked. Although I didn't suppress my breath, I could see some of my foundation just by looking at it like this, and it can be seen from calling Yueyu brothers that the relationship between the two should be good, and even their strength should be. Ha ha ha, you kid, to obtain good fortune requires more than strength, luck is also a part of strength, so you don't have to be so humble. The middle-aged man was also very satisfied. With his vicious eyes, he could naturally see that this boy named Xiao Yang and others are different, lacking a kind of aloof attitude like that of a noble son. I heard brother Yu long ago that you said in your letter that the boy who obtained the fortune of the ruins this time is not easy. When I look at it today, it is really extraordinary. I want to come to this Shen Sankai this time will be even more exciting. The middle-aged man is also rode with a smile. Ha ha ha, my daughter and little friend Xiao Yang have asked brother Hu since Shensan 3 days. Yu also said with a smile. The middle-aged man looked at Yu and said with a smile, I'm just in charge of receiving and leading. Shen Santian is not something I can say, but brother Yu, why do you still talk so much about our friendship? I will naturally take care of it. Good to them. If you weren't busy today, I would definitely drink 300 cups with you. Yu also laughed. But Shen Tiantian is very strict when recruiting his disciples, so he needs to pay attention to a few points. First, the origin must be clear. For those whose origin is unknown, sects other than Solomon will not be accepted by the sects within the 3 days of Shen. After all, the major sects in the 3 days of Shen also pay great attention to their image, so those whose origins are unclear will definitely not accept them. Received. Second, the talent of Tianzi is better. The road of cultivation is inherently difficult. Without a good Tianzi, it will only waste the time of vain cultivators and make no progress. Therefore, we also advise those with insufficient Tianzi. Don't waste your time. The third is to be able to endure hardships and stand hard work, to get rid of the stubbornness of the child's character, and one must not give up easily, but must be strong-willed. Cultivation is not as easy as imagined. Without persevering determination and long time, it is difficult to achieve anything. Fourth, when you enter a sect, you must go through strict screening and allocate training resources according to your natural talents. Therefore, not everyone can enter the sect to learn powerful exercises and fighting skills. It all depends on you. Talent and strength, the middle-aged man said slowly. Hearing this, Xiao Yang also frowned. Obviously, the middle-aged man said there are no problems except the unknown origin, but the problem is here. Ha ha ha, what brother who said is very true, but this little friend Xiao Yang is a first-grade emperor alchemist, and he is also a worship elder of our Yu family, so there shouldn't be an unknown origin, right? Yu also has a keen eye. Saw Xiao Yang's concerns at a glance, and then said, although this kid is young and his soul strength is not weak, but a first-rank emperor alchemist, this is too much. The middle-aged Hudu pondered. As for Hudu, who has been in Shentian Sansan all the year round, he is very clear. This so-called emperor-rank first-rank pharmacist may not be very outstanding in Zhuan Sansan, but what is outstanding is his age. Possessing such a powerful medicine refining technique is enough to show that this kid has a high talent for refining medicine. If it is true, then this kid named Xiao Yang is too terrifying. Haha, brother Hu, when did I lie to you? Moreover, countless people in our Yu family have seen with our own eyes that Xiao Yang Xiaoyu has refined a first-grade emperor-rank medicinal pill, and successfully subdued it. Yu also said. Heh. The middle-aged Hudu also moved his eyes slightly, and then locked Xiao Yang firmly. In that case, it's a family. The middle-aged man also smiled, as if he was thinking about something. He knows Yu's character and habits, so since this Xiao Yang can be accepted as the worship elder of their Yu family, there is no need to worry about his origin. Hearing this, Xiao Yang felt relieved when he saw the actions and words and deeds of the middle-aged and Yu, and then sat down. Yueru is also a medicinal pill Xiao Yang, and then sits tightly beside Xiao Yang. Yue, haven't seen your Uncle Hu yet? Yu also said. Yueru has met Uncle Hu. When Yueru heard this, she also stood up and gave a salute to the middle-aged man, but Yueru's previous actions were seen by the middle-aged man. I was still a baby when I held you, and I never imagined that I would grow into a lady. The middle-aged man also laughed ha ha ha. Yeah, time flies quickly, and decades have passed since we separated. Yu couldn't help but sigh. Are the two of them going this time? Hudu also knew Yu's habit. Once he mentioned it, it was like a surging river, and he hurriedly changed the subject. Yes, this time we in Qingcheng are my precious daughter Yueru and the elder Xiao Yang. Yueyu also said. Looking at Yu and Hudu in front of them, they chatted a lot again, but most of them were their childhood memories. Okay, brother Hu, you've come all the way, and you must be tired. You'll rest here today, and I'll take care of you in the evening. Yu also said that it was getting late. Alright, but don't forget my mission. Hudu also yawned. Don't worry, I have already informed people in other cities that they will come to Qingcheng tomorrow, and you can take them away together, saving a lot of trouble. Yu had already made arrangements. Let's all go down, the two of you have a good rest, and you should be leaving tomorrow. Yu sent Hudu away to rest, and then said to Yu and Xiao Yang beside her. The two also nodded when they heard the words, and then went back to the room. This time, the messenger who came to the 7 major cities near Qingcheng to go to Shentian Sansan was named Hudu, who was also a peak powerhouse of the 5-star Dodi. Since Hudu first came to Qingcheng, he was entertained by Yueyu and lived in Yu's house. The following is enough to illustrate the iron-like relationship between the two. Hearing the arrival of the messenger, several people from other major cities also came to Qingcheng one after another. Of course, Yueyu's help was inevitable. In the ghost's wooden house, Yueru also found that she couldn't sleep today, and murmured as she looked at Xiao Yang's room where the lights had already been turned off. This is the first time I've traveled far. I'm really reluctant to bear my father. Xiao Yang. Don't try to escape from Miss Ben's palm. In the wooden house opposite Yueru, whose lights had long since been turned off, a thin figure suddenly shuddered. In a blink of an eye, the night passed and the second day passed. On this day, Hudu also went to bed early under the warm hospitality of Yueyu, and everyone in the other 7 cities also knew that today was the time for them to leave. Because only Xian Santian will let the proud sons of the 7 cities know that there are people outside the world and there are heavens, and then they will gain more powerful cultivation resources and insights, so the masters of the major cities are also actively cooperating with the messengers of Xian Santian. After all, this is what an essential family heir must go through. In Wucheng, before a dilapidated hall, a few servants also looked up to the sky. After the sky-high explosion, their Wucheng suffered heavy losses, and many of the luxury buildings in the past were beyond recognition, but even so, that the irascible lord of Wucheng also seemed to go silent on weekdays, as if the loss of his beloved son made him lose himself, and he is only now showing up. At the towering pavilion, a majestic red doqi rose to the sky, and the figure wrapped in doqi was the lord of Wucheng. Today, we are going to leave Wucheng to organize a major event, and the daily life of Wucheng is business as usual. Everything will be managed by Murray after I leave. The Lord of Wucheng also stood on the pavilion and said regretfully. If it wasn't for his son to encounter this kind of thing, it would be great to stand on this acre and be a tyrant, but unfortunately, Wu Huan had such a situation, and now he had no choice but to take people to the place of that force. After all, only they could save their son's life. How so? Could it be that young Master Wu Huan really suffered an accident? There were many voices from below the pavilion. The Lord of Wucheng also didn't care about the many words. The red fighting chi roared out from his body, like a ferocious lion, and on the head of the lion, the Lord of Wucheng's eyes turned to a house in the distance of Qingcheng. Xiao Yang, little bastard, I will definitely kill you in revenge for this murder. After a moment of grimness, he also understood his immediate task, then withdrew his gaze, no longer hesitated, and disappeared in a flash. On the edge of the sky, with the disappearance of the Master of Wucheng, the people of the Soul Clan also followed, and the group obviously had some plans. Muller has already embarked on the road to Qingcheng. Sword King City, under a lonely peak like a sword blade, a black figure with a heavy sword on his back walked out of the mountain step by step, saying something while walking. As I approached, I just found out that it was a young man in a grey robe. If you look closely, who is not Wang Zhong? However, in his eyes, the black cloth wrapped around it had disappeared without a trace, and a black mark on his forehead invisibly exuded a more frightening aura than before. The side effects of your imprint are getting worse and worse. You have to be careful in the future, and don't take it off easily unless you have to, or you will go crazy. I hope Shen Santian can suppress this mark. A thin figure also spoke slowly. As ordered, Master. Wang Zhong also said to the thin figure in front of him with his hands clasped, and then wrapped the black mark on his forehead. Although the emaciated figure in front of Wang Zhong makes people seem a little weak, only Wang Zhong knows that this seemingly emaciated master is actually a veritable strong man, and also has Yu, the master of the Yu family. One fight, but his master was obsessed with sword intent all day long and didn't pay too much attention to these things. You need a real opponent to sharpen your sword. These 7 cities obviously can't accommodate you. Shen Santian should be the best place for you to understand the sword intent. I can't help you too much when you practice sword intent. Everything depends on you. Be careful on the road. The thin figure's hoarse voice disappeared. Wang Zhong also nodded knowingly, and then walked towards Qingcheng. Anyway, his master came and went without a trace, and he was already used to it. In the city of 10,000 beasts, a deafening beast roar resounded from the city, and then people in the entire city saw a huge winged beast flapping its wings and soaring into the air. Because everyone knows that picking up messengers is a tiring job, not to mention the boring time of going back and forth. On the way to pick up and lead, if you encounter some people with bad intentions attacking, it will not be worth the loss. However, as a price, as long as the envoy can find a disciple with third-class talent, the sect that the disciple joins in the future will also give the envoy some considerable compensation. Are you a good seedling? There are just a few. He also looked at the 9 people behind him, and laughed. How many people are there in our contact point this time? How many people are talented? Hudu also suddenly remembered and asked. This. Mo Chen couldn't help being speechless when Hudu asked this question. This is some secret that can't be said. I really blame myself for this. However, the relationship between Uncle Hudu and the person in charge of our contact point seems to be good. I forgot all about it, I can't say it. Hudu also looked at Mo Chen and said. Neither. Our takeover test site this time is divided into 36, and we are one of them. According to the statistics of yesterday, the total number of people who came here is 1,361. There are a total of 1,300 people who have passed the talent test. It is strange to say that there are 61 people who disappeared out of thin air. This can make the person in charge of our stronghold anxious. After all, our people can come here when they see it with their own eyes. I got off the ferry and walked towards the test site in the square, but I didn't find these 61 people. Mo Chen also frowned, obviously this matter bothered them. This is a test and selection competition organized by the 9 super sects in the Shentian 3 days. Whoever eats the guts of the bear heart and leopard will not dare to be arrogant here, let alone grab it out of thin air in this heavily guarded stronghold and come to join the sect disciple. After all, the Dodi continent is an upper plane, and it is not comparable to the Dochi continent. If a Dodi powerhouse wants to break open space out of thin air, it is only necessary to reach the 6-star Dodi and above. How come? I remember this kind of thing never happened before. Hudu also began to ponder. Because 61 people were missing, it was enough to show the importance of this matter. Hey, how can there be some residual aura similar to the ghosts in the ghost world? Although it is very weak, it seems that it has been covered up by people. Just when Xiao Yang heard that Mo Chen said that 61 people were missing, in the ring, his master Jinlong also said suddenly and quietly. When Xiao Yang heard what his master Jinlong King said, he also rolled his eyes thoughtfully, and then followed Mo Chen and Hu Du and walked towards the back of the square. Yu, who was on the side, passed by the place Xiao Yang had just had, and was suddenly dizzy, and then the mysterious rune on her forehead slowly emitted an inconspicuous light. Xiao Yang also kept an eye on Yueru's state at all times, and just felt that something was wrong with Yueru, and before she could ask any more questions, Yueru fell to the ground as if she had collapsed. To say that it is late is fast. Xiao Yang, who has a quick eye and a quick hand, supports Yu and doesn't care about other things. The gentle power in his body is transmitted to Yueru's body. After Xiao Yang's gentle power within her body, Yu's beautiful eyes moved slightly, and then she was dripping with sweat. Are you all right? Xiao Yang also said solemnly, obviously not knowing what happened to Yueru. It's all right, I just suddenly lost my strength for no apparent reason. I'm much better now. Yueru also said. Then Yueru also saw Xiao Yang's one hand supporting her shoulder, the other hand sending gentle power from her lower abdomen, so Yueru turned red without even passing through her ears. It's fine, I'll help you go. Xiao Yang also looked at the tired Yu and said. Yeah. Yueru also said softly. Oh, it's actually an automatic protector. It seems that the power of inheritance on this girl is really extraordinary. But looking at the power of inheritance, as I expected, it should be a life and death enemy with that ghost world. The Golden Dragon King also said to himself when he discovered Yueru's sudden voluminous mark. Have you reported to the above? Hu Du obviously realized the importance of the matter, and his tone of speech changed. No. It was suppressed by our person in charge. Mo Chen was also frightened by this sudden momentum. Who is the person in charge here? Immediately. Take me to see him immediately. Hu Du also shouted loudly, and then scolded him. This is a joke about other people's lives. Yes, it's your senior brother Fu Yi. Mo Chen quickly agreed. Fu Ye, take me to see him. What about these people? Go together. After the two of them finished speaking, they speeded up and walked towards an exquisite room at the back of the square. When everyone in the back heard the words, they also knew the importance of the matter, and immediately followed without hesitation. On top of the winged beast, a delicate young girl was sitting on her knees. Her long green hair and her eyes were full of agility and quirky appearance. It is Liu Yin. On her tender shoulders, the ice blue Xiaohan was also beating cheerfully, making a chirping sound. Obviously it was very happy to be able to go out to play again. The strange thing was that the cold air in Xiaohan's pair of bird eyes seemed to be stronger than that in the ruins. It is more powerful inside, obviously it has grown through something. Father, let's go, don't miss me too much. Liu Yin touched the bird, her face full of excitement. Let's go. The girl shouted loudly, and Xiao Han, who was originally a small Iran, swelled several times in an instant, and then his wings vibrated, his speed soared, and the wind went away. Master, Miss's ability to tame animals is really extraordinary. A housekeeper also looked at Liu Yindao, who was far away. Naturally, after all, it was cultivated as a successor. The person called the master also responded. In a martial arts academy, a man showing his upper body, his burly muscles are enviable. It seems that your gains in the ruins are not small. Sun Ming's father also said. They possess the power of berserkers, and they can use their power to break through the current limit, so although they also cultivate Do Qi, they pay more attention to the cultivation of physical fitness. If you go to Shentian Santian, you should pay attention. After all, it's not our 7 cities. Said like a dragon. I know, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. Sun Ming also sorted out his clothes and left. To the north of Qingcheng, there is a snowy family. Miss, the messenger of Xian Santian has arrived in Qingcheng. The master asked me to inform you that you can leave. A well-behaved maid sounded cautiously outside the incense pavilion. Oh, I see. Then Xiao Yang has some meaning. After speaking, he disappeared into the room strangely. Inside the city of hell, a young face that was pale and bloodless appeared in the wooden house. His eyes were grey, and his body seemed to be wrapped in the aura of death, which made people shudder. Let's go, the messenger of Xian Santian has arrived. I hope Xian Santian can improve my physique, otherwise. The moment he spoke, he also coughed, and then a large pool of blood appeared in his hands. In Fenglei City, a woman in a vegetable skirt with a thunderous vindictive body also set off towards Qingcheng. Xian Santian, I'm really looking forward to it. Several people from the 7 major cities also rushed towards Qingcheng. Xiao Yang and Yueru also got up early in the morning, prepared some things to bring with them, and then waited in the lobby with Hu Du, because today they were together. To leave this Qingcheng. The next day, when the first ray of sunshine in the morning shone on the earth, Hu Du was already in the Yu family hall, and then Yu and Xiao Yang were also waiting there. As soon as the others came, they would set off. Yu and Hudu were also chatting about trivial matters, and then Yu sat in the lobby and seemed a little uneasy. After all, this was the first time she had traveled far. Although she was helped by an acquaintance, Yu was also extremely worried. Don't worry, father, I will take good care of myself. Yueru also knew her father's thoughts, and then her lips lifted slightly. You are so old, so I don't need to worry too much. Just remember to take care of yourself when you go out. In addition, try to use as little as possible the things on your forehead, before you have enough strength and accept the inheritance. Yu also solemnly. Yeah. Yu nodded knowingly when she heard the words, and then her slender eyes moved slightly, which was extremely beautiful. Seeing this, Xiao Yang shook his head helplessly, wondering if his father and daughter were okay. Minutes and seconds passed, and the people from the 7 major cities also came to the Yu family one after another. After all, this was the messenger of Xian Santian, and they did not dare to miss the opportunity. Mueller was also the first to come to Yu's house, and then greeted Hudu respectfully. Although Wuqing and Mu's family obviously hated that Yu's house sheltered Xiao Yang, but unfortunately this was someone else's territory, and Mueller also knew others didn't like seeing him, so he didn't make fun of himself and found a place to sit down. Immediately after that, Feng Yi, a woman in a colorful dress, also arrived immediately, with a rush of fire, with a faint thunder beating on her slender body. Feng Yi just walked into the lobby of Yu's house when she saw Xiao Yang, Yu and Mu Le, and then said hello to Xian Santian's messenger, and then went straight to Xiao Yang regardless of Yueru's eyes. Sit down. I haven't seen your strength increase so fast for a few days. Feng Yi said to Xiao Yang with great interest as soon as he sat down. Xiao Yang was also helpless about this, and then responded with a smile. After all, Xiao Yang remembered that Feng Yi possessed the 2 attributes of wind and thunder, and his soul strength was not weak. Although Xiao Yang is not afraid, multiple friends are better than multiple enemies. Yu, who was beside her, frowned slightly, and then stared at Feng Yi, as if she was guarding against something. The living dead also appeared silently, their faces were pale, and those who didn't know it thought they were unwell. After looking around, he also found a place to sit down and slowly waited for the arrival of others. Wang Zhong also arrived, and warmly greeted everyone in the lobby. A slender figure appeared in the lobby like a ghost. This movement is really weird, Hudu also said. Liu Yin and Sun Ming also came one after another. Mu Jiomula, Fenglei City Fengyi, the ginseng market of the living dead in Hades City, Sword King City King Bell, the magic of the Snow Ruins family, Liu Yin, City of 10,000 Beast. Berserker Sun Ming. The 7 people also came to Yu's house one after another. Seeing that everyone had arrived, Xiao Yang also carefully looked at them. The ones that impressed the most were the Berserker Sun Ming and Wang Zhong of Sword King City. Compared with them, it is not as good as either of them. If the 7 of you arrive, adding these 2, there will be 9 people in total. Now that you are all here, let's go. Seeing that everyone was there, Hudu also stood up, and then faced everyone in the lobby. Road. Everyone got up when they heard the words, and then looked at Hudu with hot eyes. The strength of this messenger of Xian Santian is actually so powerful that it can be seen that the so-called Xian Santian is a real trial ground. NOVLB///C//OM. Hudu also finished speaking, then floated out of the lobby, waved his palm, and a stream of light appeared in front of everyone out of thin air. Everyone looked up and saw the vast sky above the Yu family courtyard. The originally gorgeous clouds were suddenly torn apart, and the streamer waving from Hudu's hand turned into a giant shadow that whizzed past everyone, and then quickly expanded. Seeing this, Xiao Yang also covered the huge soul power of his streamer, and then under Xiao Yang's perception, it seemed to be a huge container. Everyone was far away at first and didn't know what it was. After looking carefully, they discovered that the giant shadow was actually a giant ship. The ship was engraved with some mysterious runes, as if it was protected by an invisible layer of fighting spirit. There is a majestic fluctuation of fighting spirit above. This item is a ferry boat. It is a tool used in our Xian Santian to travel remotely. It can independently open up a space channel to reach Xian Santian, save a lot of trouble, and its speed is extremely fast, just need to inject Do Qi into it, and it can continue to flow. Progress, and the vindictive energy consumed is negligible. Hudu also laughed. Senior, why don't you use your own vindictive energy to go on your way? Mueller also asked in confusion. Obviously, the affairs of Wuqing in the past few days made him not have much understanding of Xian Tiantian. Hey, it's true that it's true to rush your way with vindictive qi, but it's a long way from here to Xian Sansan. If you insist on rushing your way with vindictive qi, I won't make it difficult for you. Hudu also laughed. Ha. Mueller didn't speak as if he had closed the door. In that case, get on the boat and set off. I should have missed some time on the way here, otherwise I won't be able to catch up. Hudu also said. Hearing that, the 9 people also jumped onto the giant ship one after another. Brother Hu, I'll ask you to love your daughter. Yu Yu also knew that the time for each invitation was extremely hasty, so she didn't hold back too much. Yeah. Hu Du also responded, then with a movement, he instantly appeared on the giant ship. Hu Du's huge vindictive chi also radiated out and then injected it towards the bow of the boat. With the injection of vindictive chi, the giant ship also slowly accelerated its speed. In a blink of an eye, it disappeared into the blue sky. City, heading towards Shen Santian. After all, Qingcheng is the border of Shenling continent, and Shentian Santian is the real core of Shenling continent, so it is extremely far away from where Zhuangtianshan is, and if you fly away, it will cost more money along the way. Not to mention the time, the various checkpoints along the way are also troublesome, and the most important thing is that the strength of their mere 3-star duty is not enough to support such a long flight, so Hu Jutsai used the ferry. First, it is convenient, second, it can go directly to Shen Santian, and third, it is also possible to explain some precautions for them on the way. After all, every reception is these procedures. So Mueller's previous question was also ridiculous. Obviously, the strength of any of the 9 of them was not qualified to use Do Qi to cross Shentian Santian. The giant ship was moving rapidly in a quiet passage, and then on the periphery of the giant ship, a layer of giant battle qi shield that wrapped the entire ferry also appeared, and everyone felt relieved when they saw this. Let's go find accommodation first, 1 room per person, on the 2nd floor. When things are settled, gather together at night. I have something to inform you. Hu Du's voice came from beside the 9 people. When the 9 people heard the words, they did the same. Xiao Yang also looked at this ferry boat with great interest, obviously very interested. In a room of the ferry boat, there were exactly 10 people, no more or no less, and 10 people were sitting slowly. Hu Du sat cross-legged, in the center, and around him, Xiao Yang, Yueru, and other 9 favored sons who were led to Shen Santian together, all sat cross-legged around Hu Du. Xiao Yang and Yueru sat down and looked at each other immediately, apparently not knowing what Hu Du was going to tell them this time. Around Xiao Yang and Yueru, the rest of the people were also at a loss, and immediately looked at Hu Du with all eyes on them. According to the current speed of our ferry, within a month, we will be able to reach Shentian San. So some things have to be notified to you in advance, so as not to make a fool of yourself. Do you guys know about Shen Sansan? Hu Du would warn them every time he invited people from various places to Shen Sansan. Although this was not a time when he had to do as a messenger, Hu Du felt it was necessary. Let's talk about science with these guys who have never set foot in Shen Santian before. Everyone shook their heads in unison. Hu Du sighed, obviously he already knew the result, so he was not surprised, and then said, Shenling continent is a quarter of the entire Dodi continent, although the Shenling continent is the largest in the Sifang continent. Weak point. But Shenling continent also has its proud heritage. That's Shen Santian, a place that brings together the real peak powerhouses and sectarian forces on the Shenling continent. Xiao Yang also frowned when he heard the words. Obviously, Shensan Sansan is likely to be a place where the Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon are located. After all, from the information that he knew before, how could he be weak if he could be close to the strong fighting immortals? The area above our Shenling continent is also vast. For example, there are countless places like your 7 major cities, which are far from what you can imagine. And all the sects in the Shentian 3 days will send messengers to the Shenling continent every year. Enrollment in various places is for the sake of fresh blood, and it is also for the purpose of finding good seedlings for training. After all, our mysterious spirit continent has finished 5 times in a row in the quartet martial arts held every 50 years. Hu Du also continued. What is Sifang Huewu? Xiao Yang also wondered. The so-called Sifang Huewu is the duel between the 4 continents on the Dodi continent to determine the ranking. The level of this ranking determines the quite precious cultivation resources. Cough, cough, these are still too far from you. What you have to do now is to join the sect first. Hu Du also almost caught Xiao Yang's words, and hurriedly stopped. Everyone also nodded thoughtfully. Obviously, what the host said gave them some new understanding. Okay, then let's get down to business. Hu Du also took a sip of the tea next to him and smiled. After talking for a long time, Hu Du also felt thirsty, so he sipped a few sips of tea, glanced at the crowd, and then said slowly, I have to tell you, although you are the favored sons of heaven in the 7 cities, but I am the messenger who led you to Shentian San, but this does not mean that you can truly join the super sect within Shen Santian. As soon as Hu Du said these words, everyone's originally excited mood became silent. On the Shenling continent, for example, there are hundreds of thousands of places in your 7 major cities, and each place has a group of not weak heaven's favored sons, so those favored sons in other places will also be picked up by others. If so, there are thousands of people who want to join the super sect within the Shentian 3 days. These people are like you, and they are the best in every place on the Shenling continent. So in order to cope with this situation, all the super sects in Shen Santian have jointly formulated a rule for those of you who want to join the sect. After you arrive at Xian for 3 days, everyone will be registered with a series of physical strength, soul strength, physical strength, etc., and then they will be divided into 5 levels according to the comprehensive quality of these items. Hu Du, after speaking, he paused for a while, obviously giving everyone a chance to react. When Xiao Yang heard this, he frowned. Obviously, there must be a reason for this to be divided into 5 levels. Feng Yi heard the words, and the silent crowd also said, "Senior, is there any difference between these 5 grades?" Naturally, there is a difference. The 5th level is from 1 to 5, and the 5th level is the highest. Although these 5 levels will not give you any rewards, these 5 levels have a lot to do with the selection before you join the sect. Evaluation. The higher the level, the stronger its potential and the more attention it will receive from the super sect. Since the number of people who want to join the super sect every year is too large, so you people will have a selection before joining the super sect after reaching Xian Santian. On the one hand, it is to eliminate some people who are indiscriminately trying to fish in troubled waters, thereby greatly reducing the number of people. On the other hand, it is to select elites who are truly worthy of training. And these 5 levels are also directly related to the selection of you reaching Xian Santian, so don't hide it when you reach Shentian inspection. Hu Du also saw Xiao Yang's intentions. Concealing his own strength, he spoke. Hearing this, Xiao Yang also smiled helplessly. Joining a super sect is really not easy. The selection mode changes every year, sometimes it's fighting, sometimes it's a point system, etc. It's different every year, but no matter which mode, the elimination rate is as high as half. That is to say, between you, half or more of the people will be eliminated. If you are eliminated, then you will lose the qualification to join the super sect, and you have to go back the same way. After Hu Du finished speaking, the room became quiet. Everyone frowned slightly, apparently not expecting that the selection would be so strict. And after the selection, the top 10 will have extra rich rewards, and they can also choose to join the super sect, so you should work hard. Hu Du also looked at a few people like a child. These 9 people among them, only Xiao Yang made him feel a little different. It seemed that he always felt that this kid would shine in the selection process. After all, the soul power of the Emperor realm is quite rare. But if you don't pass the selection, it is inevitable that some powerful sects will take a fancy to them, and you can join their sects with reluctance, but this possibility is too small, unless you have special skills or special physiques. Hu Du also looking at the berserker Sun Ming and Wang Zhong with great interest, it was obvious that this was what they were saying. The two also smiled lightly when they heard the words. Obviously they didn't take Hu Du's words to heart, because they also knew that Hu Du was also good for them, but the two also had their own pride. After all, if they couldn't even pass the selection, then what about joining a super sect? Everyone's heart is as if there is a big mountain suppressing them. In the room, as Hu Du's previous voice fell, the originally harmonious atmosphere suddenly became much heavier. Because the 9 of them also know that in terms of cultivation resources, compared with other places in the 7 major cities in the border area of Shenling continent, they will only be weak and not strong. He is too powerful, so even if he is as strong as Xiao Yang, his face is tense and his eyes are a little uneasy. After all, the current strength of the 9 people present is also at the peak of Xiao Yang's 3-star Do Emperor. The other 8 people are all from the late stage of the 3-star Do Emperor or at the peak of the 3-star Do Emperor. Among the younger generation in the 7 major cities, they can indeed be regarded as the best, but after going to Shentian 3 days, their competitors are also the best in various places on the Shenling continent. The border areas are lacking in resources, the local arrogance is also much stronger than them, so the city lords of the 7 major cities are also strongly in favor of sending their children to Shentian to cultivate in order to obtain better opportunities and resources. The 9 of them left the 7 major cities and went to the holy land of cultivation that countless people dreamed of on the Shenling continent. The people in the family have high hopes for them. If they can't join any sect, then they will be treated to them by themselves. It is also a huge blow to their self-esteem, and it will obviously be a huge blow to their self-esteem. After all, each of them is the next successor in the 7 major cities. If they can't join the sect, their prestige in the family will be greatly reduced, which will lead to certain obstacles in inheriting the father's business in the future. Hu Du glanced at the 9 people, but didn't say anything to comfort them, because there are countless people on the Shenling continent, not to mention that the selection of disciples of the super sects within the Shentian 3 days is also extremely strict. Not everyone can succeed in the end. Join it, so naturally some people are happy and some cry in between. Therefore, Hu Du did not offer too much comfort. This kind of thing has to be realized by the person concerned. Everyone was silent for a while, and then their eyes shone with dazzling brilliance again. Obviously, even Hu Du's words did not shock them. After all, they still have to walk their own way in the future. They are the proud of the 7 cities, but they are not necessarily afraid of the proud of other places. Seeing this, Hu Du also nodded with satisfaction. If the few of them couldn't even accept this small blow, they should go back as soon as possible, lest they would only be shamed if they went to Xian Santian. Okay, since there's nothing else to do, Go down and rest. You remember to adjust your peak state this month. Hudu also said. Well, everyone also said. The ferry boat was driving steadily and rapidly from the black space passage. It was not long after Hudu's words were over. On the second floor of the boat, there were several figures sitting around the wine table. It was Xiao Yang, Yueru, Feng Yihe, Wang Zhong, Liu Yin, Sun Ming, and the enchanting 7 people. As for Mueller and the living dead, the 7 people present didn't like to see them very much, not to mention that the relationship between the 2 of them and Xiao Yang was deadlocked, so naturally it was impossible to call them. Originally, Xiao Yang only called Wang Zhong and Sun Ming. After all, he was too impressed with these 2. One is the sword idiot Wang Zhong, who is comprehending the meaning of swords and mainly cultivates the meaning of swords, and the other is Sun Ming, a berserker who cultivates the flesh. Liu Yin was obviously very curious about the fire spirit on Xiao Yang's body, so she would definitely not miss this opportunity, so she followed, but the fire spirit fell into a deep sleep, so she had no choice but to do it. As for Feng Yi and Yaromai, they seemed to have a good relationship. As soon as they saw Liu Yin's movement, they hurriedly followed, for fear of missing something, so there was a scene where the 7 gathered. Originally, Xiao Yang also thought that before Shensan Santian arrived and everyone had not gone their separate ways to get together, firstly, it was for many friends. Shen Tiantian knew very little. Seeing how Wang Zhong and the others were hesitating to speak just now, it was obvious that he knew something. Wang Zhong and the others also understood Xiao Yang's intentions, and they arrived as promised. After all, the Xiao Yang in front of him did not say anything else, just that light can obtain the great fortune in the ruins, which can show that his strength is terrible, and there is another most important thing. Reason. Xiao Yang is now a first-rank emperor rank pharmacist. Even their 3-star Do-D strong are willing to make friends with such identities. The 7 people sat around the wine table. Obviously, they also knew that no matter what reputation and title they had in the 7 cities in the past, they all understood that when they arrived at Xian for 3 days, they would all fade away. The road of cultivation and the road in the future must be taken by themselves, and no one knows whether they will climb to the top again or return to the ordinary. Therefore, it was the first time that the 7 of them went out such a long way, and they gathered together immediately. One was to solve the boredom on the way, and the other was to make friends. After all, when you go out, there are many friends and many ways to go. In the future, 2 good mutual help. The 4 girls chuckled and discussed some topics exclusive to girls. Apparently because of their current age, they were also quite homesick. Seeing this, Xiao Yang also smiled slightly, then picked up the wine glass and smiled at Wang Zhong, who was beside him. I have long heard that Brother Wang's sword intent is very pure, and when he saw it in the ruins that day, it was extremely tyrannical. In the ruins of the Warcraft Mountains, Xiao Yang also clearly remembered the giant sword used by Wang Zhong. He was alone against a guardian of the peak of the 3-star Do-D. Xiao Yang was really surprised, and the mark on Wang Zhong's forehead was removed. Strength is also capable of bursting out extremely powerful forces in a short period of time. Brother Xiao passed the prize. After Wang Zhong finished speaking, he also toasted. Obviously, this Wang Zhong is also obsessed with sword intent, and he is quite numb when it comes to personal affairs. Xiao Yang also smiled understandingly and didn't say anything, because he also knew that although this Wang Zhong was taciturn, if he really fought it seems that no one dares to underestimate it. Wang Zhong raised his head to look at Xiao Yang with his black cloth wrapped around his forehead, and also raised his glass and drank it. I can feel that you are a rare opponent, so I hope I will have the opportunity in the future. Let me try my sword well. Xiao Yang smiled and said cheerfully, I will accompany you at any time. Then Zai raised his glass and chatted with Sun Ming for a while. After a while, Xiao Yang looked at several people with a smile on his face. In fact, he knew that everyone had already heard from the envoy of Hudu about the challenges that will be faced in the future, so they all felt a little pressure. Xiao Yang raised his wine glass, looked at everyone, was silent for a moment, smiled and said, Everyone, we are also friends who have fought side by side, although our 7 major cities are only a small place compared to Zhuangtianshan, but the starting point cannot determine a person's ending point. So when we stand at the top of the younger generation in this Shenling continent one day in the future, they will know how amazing our small 7 cities are. Everyone, I hope to see you again at the height of Nashuan 3 days. I'll do it first as a respect. After Xiao Yang finished speaking, there was also a strong desire for war in his eyes. Obviously, Hudu's words aroused the passion in his heart. Yueru also looked at Xiao Yang in a daze. Obviously Xiao Yang exuded a different kind of charm at this time. Feng Yi was also attracted by Xiao Yang's words, and looked at the latter with interest. As for Yaromai and Liu Yin, they also looked at several people in the arena together. Wang Zhong and Sun Ming also heard Xiao Yang's words, and immediately felt the blood in their bodies boiling slightly, then raised their wine glasses and collided heavily. On the top floor of the ferry boat, Hudu's eyes were all swept to the second floor of the boat below. Obviously, their belongings were also discovered, but Hudu did not stop them too much. It can be regarded as a way for young people to relieve their worries. Immediately, he injected a trace of vindictiveness into the ferry boat, and then continued to close his eyes. In a room not far away, Mueller also noticed the movements of several people, then his eyes were cold, and the corners of his mouth raised a touch of sarcasm and contempt. It's really a bunch of idiots who don't know what to do. After you arrive at Shen Sansan, you will know how ridiculous your agreement today is after you have met the real heroes of the sky. Xiao Yang, don't worry, if you kill Wuqing, the people of that force will definitely not let you go, and you will feel better when the time comes. But I really have to thank you. If you hadn't killed Wuqing, they wouldn't have increased my training. The living dead also noticed the movements of several people, but also ignored them and continued to close their eyes and rest. After 3 rounds of drinking, everyone was not at all intoxicated. I wonder if everyone has any information about Shen Santian? Xiao Yang also felt the need to ask. Hey, you've asked the right person. Wang Zhong also laughed. Before I went out, my master told me about some super sects within the 3 days of Shen. Zhuantianshan is a land with a very high concentration of fighting qi, with a radius of 10,000 miles. On this land, there are 9 super sects on the bright side. Of course, there are more or less sects that are not above the rankings. Some hidden sects are also excluded. Oh, what about the 9 super sects? Xiao Yang also looked at Wang Zhong with great interest, and when a few people next to him heard the words, they also turned their attention to Wang Zhong. Although Xiao Yang had previously heard Qing Yuan say that the powers on the Shenling continent can basically be divided into 1 country, 2 pavilions, 3 valleys, and 4 sects, but Wang Zhong certainly did not explain it carefully, so he listened to Wang Zhong's words attentively. As we all know, our Shenling continent is divided into 2 major races, humans and monsters. Our human forces are roughly divided into 1 country, 2 pavilions, 3 valleys, and 4 sects. Of course, there are some equally powerful forces that few people know about. In the Shenling continent, the real peak powerhouses and sects are gathered on the fertile land of Zhuansanshan, and the Shenling royal family is not included. After all, they are the representatives of our Shenling continent. The real supersects within Shen Santian are divided into 9 supersects. They are Burning Incense Pavilion, Wanhua Pavilion, Ancient Desolate Palace, Purgatory Hall, Solomon, Puppet Palace, Pill Valley, Heartless Palace, Wanjianmen 9 supersect. Wang Zhong also said slowly. Everyone frowned when they heard this. Obviously, it was the first time they heard about the distribution of Xuantian's forces. Isn't the division of forces on the Shenling continent 1 country, 2 pavilions, 3 valleys, and 4 sects? Why are some forces not included in the super sect? Xiao Yang was also an outsider, and he didn't know much about Shenling continent and Shentian Santian. You must also know that Funxiang Pavilion and Wanhua Pavilion. The Funxiang Pavilion is very strict in accepting apprentices. It only accepts people with fire attributes, and they must be men. There is no woman in the pavilion. It seems that the yang is prosperous and the yin is declining. It is not so harsh, but it is also opposed to the Funxiang Pavilion. Wanhua only accepts women. It is rumored that the owner of the Wanhua Pavilion and the owner of the Funxiang Pavilion have a marriage relationship. Created one of the 2 most powerful forces in the Shenling continent. And 1 country, 2 pavilions, 3 valleys, and 4 sects, except for 1 country, that is, the power of the Shenling royal family. All the powerful forces are also stationed in Shentian, and they are not included in the 9 supersects, just to show that they are with the world. There is no dispute, but after we go to Shen Tiantian for selection, we can join any sect. It's just that these 9 supersects are famous in Shentian Santian. Feng Yi explained slowly to Xiao Yang. So that's the case. Xiao Yang was relieved. After all, he just thought that the 3 valleys of Pill Valley, Nightmare Valley, and Astrology Valley, as well as the 4 sects with Heritage, Poison Sect, Sword God Sect, Ming Sect, and Solomon are not in Shenyuan. Within 3 days. Now I heard Feng Yi explain, it turned out that these sects were a little low-key, so they didn't care about the ranking. What Feng Guliang said is very true. Wang Zhong also laughed. Hearing this, Xiao Yang couldn't help but feel a little moved. For him, among the 9 supersects, apart from Funxiang Pavilion, Solomon, and Wanhua Pavilion, the rest of the sects were the first to hear about them. So it seems a little confused. Feng Yi has already introduced the Funxiang Pavilion and Wanhua Pavilion, so Wang Zhong also continued. The Ancient Desolate Hall is one of the top supersects in Shentian Santian. It is quite strict in accepting disciples. Although the powerhouses in the hall are not very good at using Do Qi, they are all known for their physical tyranny. It also needs tyrannical strength, and it is rumored that the palace master will retreat with the full force of the physical body against the strong fighting immortals. There is a legend in the Ancient Desolate Temple that there is a mysterious fighting skill called 8 Duanjia. This fighting skill must be used in conjunction with the special exercises and tyrannical flesh in the temple. Propelling this fighting skill can instantly burst out shocking power. Berserker Sun Ming also grinned. Obviously, This time he went to Shentian Santian to go to this ancient desolate palace. If he can acquire this fighting skill, his future can be said to be limitless. 8 Duanjia? It's really the first physical fighting xill I have ever seen, but if the 8 doors are fully opened, it will consume too much vitality, and a careless loss will also be lost, but I have to say that this fighting skill is really strong. Xiao Yang also heard the voice of his master Golden Dragon King in his mind. Xiao Yang was also a little surprised by this, because of the existence of Hudu, his own master Golden Dragon King appeared less often. After all, if it is discovered, it is inevitable that someone will conspire, so it is better to be careful. However, it is enough to make his master Jin Longwang, who has always been a master of the art, praise this 8 Duanjia, which is enough to show its tyranny. If there is a chance, I really want to practice. Xiao Yang heard that Wang Zhong finished speaking, but also slowly whispered, after all, the physical body is indestructible, and this alone is enough to make countless people jealous. Cut, don't think about it. Although this fighting technique is very powerful, it is not suitable for you. You must know that this fighting technique can devour life force in exchange for powerful strength. As soon as the 8 gates are opened, although enough power to turn the tide of the battle can burst out in an instant, it's not far from death, so don't mess with this kind of thing, kid. The Golden Dragon King also found that Hudu was in control of the ferry, and then also don't worry, you can spread some things to Xiao Yang. Otherwise, with Xiao Yang's current situation, if it is rumored that this Xiao Yang is his disciple, it will not be a shame. Tuorsha's disciple should also be regarded as his own disciple. The Golden Dragon King thought so. Xiao Yang naturally did not know what his master Jinlong King was thinking at this time, so he kept silent and continued to listen to Wang Zhong. Purgatory Hall, this is the most unique of the 9 major sects, because this sect does not use normal cultivation fighting spirit, but walks on the tip of the knife all the year round, specializing in hunting demons. It can be said that it is walking a sect on the edge of life and death. However, that's what gives the Purgatory Hall its illustrious reputation. After all, a sect that specializes in eliminating evil races from outside the realm has won the approval and respect of countless people, so this Purgatory Hall is also occupied by most of the Shentian 3 days. Respected by people. It is rumored that there are many superb techniques and skills in the Purgatory Hall. With the concealment, assassination, lurking and many other means they have practiced, they can kill the demons invisibly, but whether it is true or not is unknown. Zhong also said with some respect, after all, the harm that this extraterritorial evil clan has brought to the world is obvious to all. When Xiao Yang heard this, he was also secretly amazed. After all, a sect that exists exclusively to hunt and kill foreign evil races is enough to win the respect of countless people. What this kid said is not false. This Purgatory Hall really exists to hunt and kill foreign evil races, so if it is to deal with foreign evil races, this sect is unique even on the Dodi continent. If there is a chance in the future, I'd better get in touch with it, so as to learn some methods of hunting and killing foreign evil races. The Golden Dragon King also said. Xiao Yang also responded in his heart. Solomon, this sect used to be a sect that didn't pay attention to the 3 days of Xian, but I don't know why, since Solomon changed his controller, in the past 100 years, Solomon, who has always been known for being low-key, has also begun to raise a high profile, thus making one move in one fell swoop. Rushed into the 9 super sects. But this is the case. The news of this sect is too rare. Ordinary people only know the name of this sect, and others don't know it. Wang Zhong also pondered. As far as I know, Solomon seems to be collecting strange people from all over the world, and there is no threshold for joining this sect. It is the one with the lowest threshold and the largest number of people among the 9 super sects, so even if your talent is average, you can join it, it's just. Yaromai also opened her lips slightly. Just what? Wang Zhong also asked. It's just that the reputation of this sect is not very good. Yaromai also said in a humming tone. How do you say this? Wang Zhong was also at a loss. Hearing this, several people also turned their attention to the demon. I just heard that this sect often does some cruel things. And this Solomon has the worst reputation in the 3 days of Xian. Yaromai also explained. It is enough to make the always enchanting monster speak cruel words solemnly, and it is enough to see the poor reputation of Solomon. Well, that's true. Although this sect is relatively low-key, it is true that it has a bad reputation. Wang Zhong also responded. Solomon? It's really a disgusting sect. The Golden Dragon King's voice suddenly increased a bit, making Xiao Yang's soul tremble. There was obviously some resentment and other emotions in the voice of his master, the Golden Dragon King, which obviously did not escape Xiao Yang's eyes. You will know about the excess later, but you should stay away from this Solomon. The voice of the Golden Dragon King also echoed in Xiao Yang's mind. Hearing this, Xiao Yang also looked thoughtful. From the huge ghost he met before, to the people from Wuqing, the mysterious rune on Wu Huan and the people of the Soul Race, there was obviously some connection. Puppet Mansion, this sect is also quite special, because their fighting methods are different from the general ones. Ordinary people also use fighting spirit as the main tune, but the puppet mansion, as its name suggests, is to control puppets to fight. Although the strength of the manipulator itself may be mediocre, the sect of puppet art can be studied very much, and through some special techniques the method creates a powerful puppet, and controls the puppet to perform a series of actions such as attacking and defending, and its power is also not to be underestimated. And it is said that the puppets made by the puppet mansion are quite tyrannical, and can basically attack, defend, and even self-destruct like human. It's just that the materials needed to make more and more powerful puppets are too precious, and it is not a last resort. They are reluctant to blow themselves up. After all, puppets can be regarded as their second life. Wang Zhong continued. Hey, the people in this puppet mansion are quite good at manipulating puppets. I was fortunate enough to meet a man from the puppet mansion and fight him before. Sun Ming also grinned. What's the result? Liu Yin also asked while stroking Xiao Han on her shoulder. It's a tie. Sun Ming also said. These simple words reveal a huge amount of information. First of all, not to mention why Sun Ming met the people of the puppet mansion. Dang Dang is able to fight with the people of the puppet mansion, which is enough to show the strength of Sun Ming. Pill Valley, this is a very powerful sect. Although it is not as strong as other sects, the number of alchemists in this sect is huge, and the number of high-level pharmacists is also quite large. In terms of strength, this Pill Valley may not be ranked among the 9 super sects within the Shentian 3 days, but don't forget that the alchemist is known as the most annoying hornet's nest. If you fight with the pharmacist, there is no kill him, then you will be waiting for your revenge. After all, a high-level alchemist is very attractive. Wang Zhong said to Xiao Yang. Putting in envious eyes, after all, there is not anyone in this continent who does not want to become a pharmacist, but the threshold for refining pharmacists is too high, so many people are missed. Seeing this, Xiao Yang also smiled slightly and didn't say much. The Heartless Palace, it is said that this sect is the sect with the smallest number in Xian Santian, because the number of disciples in this sect, apart from those elders, should be only a few. The Heartless Palace only accepts women, and you must cut off your affection before you can enter this sect. Once you enter the sect, you will not look back in this life. It is rumored that the palace motto of the Ruthless Palace is, kill all the unfeeling people in the world. Wang Zhong also said with a hint of insight. It's so hard to forget one's feelings. Xiao Yang also sighed. After all, women who joined this sect were also hurt by their feelings, so they joined the sect when they had no choice but to cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires. What about the last one? Liu Yin also asked. Wanjianmen, the retreat of swordsmen on the Shenling continent, there are countless powerful swordsmen from this sect. That Zhenzong is a sect separated from Wanjianmen, and the sect master of Zhenzong is also one of the strongest in Wanjianmen. At the same time, Wanjianmen is also well-deserved number 1 among the 9 super sect. Xian Santian will be as big as the Shenling royal family. Wang Zhong's brief introduction shocked everyone. Hearing this, everyone frowned slightly. Obviously, Wanjianmen was the head of the 9 super sects in the Shentian 3 days and was a little surprised. Don't be surprised, this Wanjianmen acted upright and did nothing sneaky, so the leader of the 9 super sects is also worthy of the name. Wang Zhong also tried his best to say, obviously between Wanjianmen and Zhenzong, Wang Zhong is obviously wanting to join Wanjianmen. After all, this is a giant-like force in Shentian 3 days. Compared with Zhenzong, it is also much stronger, and its cultivation resources and experience will be much more. The huge information was also slowly surrounding everyone for a while. Obviously, they could not accept so many sects in a short period of time, so everyone also had to plan for their own sects. Since that's the case, I wish you all the best of luck. Xiao Yang also said when he saw that everyone was absent-minded. When everyone heard the words, they also left one after another and walked towards their room. Obviously, the information had to be digested, and they decided to join that sect. And he has to work hard to restore his peak moment to cope with the mysterious selection of Xian Santian. After several people left, Xiao Yang also got up to go back to his residence, but found that Yu Yu had not left. Yu Guliang, do you have anything else to do? Xiao Yang also said, obviously after Yu Yu's entrustment, if he could help Yu, Xiao Yang would not delay. After all, when he was in Qingcheng, he received a lot of care from Yu. It's nothing. I heard before I came here that Wucheng, Mu family and Solomon seem to have some connection, so you must not join Solomon when you arrive at Xian Santian, be careful. Yueru also said softly. Well, I see. Go down and have a rest. If you have anything, call me at any time. I'll live opposite you. Xiao Yang also responded. Yeah. Yueru replied softly and walked towards her room. I hope it will be better when Shen Tiantian joins the sect. After all, Xiao Yang looked at Yu who was far away, then shook his head and said. After clearing the wine table a little, Xiao Yang also returned to his room, and then the huge soul force also placed a restriction in the room in order to isolate others from exploration. After all, when you're out and about, it's always right to be careful. Cross-legged on the bed, closed his eyes to adjust the breath in his body. Originally, because of the fusion of the power of the original fire in the 22 middle schools and the soul avatar in Wuching, the weak soul power is slowly recovering towards the peak. The Golden Dragon King also saw that Xiao Yang had placed a restraint on his soul, so he also floated in the room with confidence. Watching Xiao Yang conditioning his soul power, he hesitated, but did not disturb Xiao Yang. He sat down quietly and waited for Xiao Yang conditioning is complete. Xiao Yang also closed his eyes and rested his mind. On the one hand, he adjusted the soul power in his body wholeheartedly, and on the other hand, he carefully felt the changes in his body. If the soul power at his peak is an ocean, then the soul power after the injury is also depleted by most, but fortunately, Xiao Yang also has medicinal materials to heal the soul power, so the soul power is also recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Right. The other place separated from the soul realm is the Do Formation Master Scroll obtained from the ruins. The inscription called Shenmo is also hanging in Xiao Yang's Ni Gong Pill. Xiao Yang's careful feeling, it seems that the spiritual world that originally contained the Shendong natal inscription, which was originally the size of the thumb, seemed to have expanded several times in the past few days. This astonishing discovery made Xiao Yang also do it. You must know that before the Shendong natal inscription entered the body, Xiao Yang's soul realm was huge and unparalleled, but after the Shendong natal inscription entered the body, Xiao Yang's soul realm was compressed by half. Soul power and spiritual power each occupy half of the space. At first, Xiao Yang was worried that if his soul realm was suddenly divided into two parts, it would hurt the soul power he finally cultivated, but now Xiao Yang knows it. The power of the soul is not only unharmed, but also becomes more and more solid under the division of the inscription of spirit movement. The current Xiao Yang, the soul power is not just promoted to the Emperor Realm mortal level. If it is the soul power that has just been promoted to the early Emperor Realm mortal level, then after the division of the soul realm after the magic movement natal inscription, Xiao Yang's soul power is said to have reached the middle stage of the Emperor Realm. Why doesn't this make Xiao Yang excited? After all, the cultivation methods of soul power are too rare. Moreover, Xiao Yang also discovered that the spiritual power in his body was also increasing at a snail-like speed. This was the power of the spiritual movement natal inscription, which was enough to show that the inscription was extraordinary. Aware of this, on Xiao Yang's finger, a white scroll dedicated to battle formation masters also appeared. Then Xiao Yang activated Ngongwen's magic movement natal inscription in his body, and controlled the negligible mental power to go towards the white scroll. 100 ways. 200 ways. 300 ways. When the number of inscriptions before the white scroll reached 350, it stopped growing. At this time, Xiao Yang's forehead was also dripping with sweat, dripping with big drops. This power is barely enough to deal with a 2-star Do Emperor, but it's not enough to deal with a 3-star Do Emperor, let alone a 4-star Do Emperor. Even so, Xiao Yang did not feel discouraged at all. It disappeared without mentioning it, and immediately had to put down the spiritual power and the battle formation master first. Then he also carefully felt his body, and the avatar of the avatar technique was also lying quietly in his soul realm. Come out. Following Xiao Yang's order, the avatar lying in the soul realm also appeared out of thin air, slightly opening the tightly closed eyes to look at Xiao Yang, as if waiting for Xiao Yang's order. Go back. Seeing that this avatar is so obedient, I nodded with satisfaction. After all, this avatar is controlled by Xiao Yang, which is absolutely safe, and then said to the avatar. Then when he closed his eyes, the huge soul force also condensed a figure exactly like Xiao Yang and appeared in front of Xiao Yang. The two Xiao Yang looked at each other, then clasped their fists one after another. Xiao Yang also looked at the avatar condensed by his Emperor Realm mortal soul power, and sighed. Sure enough, the soul power is injured, and the avatar condensed by the teaching will also be affected. The avatar that Xiao Yang condensed is now only the strength of the middle stage of the 3-star Do D. The physical avatar condensed by soul power is better than the avatar condensed by the avatar technique in terms of tacit understanding and cooperation, but the advantages and disadvantages of the two are also obvious. The physical avatar is condensed by the power of the soul. Unless the power of the soul exceeds that of oneself, it is difficult to distinguish who is the main body, but the most deadly thing is that both are prosperous. Although the clones cultivated by the clone technique have the same aura and strength as Xiao Yang, they have no control over Xiao Yang's own powerful fighting skills, and can only play a role in seducing the enemy. Xiao Yang still remembers what his master, the Golden Dragon King, said, that holy flame and the method of cultivating spiritual power will be available in Xian Santian. Immediately, he also quit the cultivation state, and then looked to the side of his master, the Golden Dragon King. Have you been conditioned? The Golden Dragon King also obviously found that Xiao Yang had withdrawn from the cultivation state, and turned his head to ask. Yeah. Saying that, Xiao Yang also got off the bed and walked towards his master, the Golden Dragon King. Master, you are hesitant to say anything. Do you have something on your mind? Xiao Yang walked up to his master, the Golden Dragon King, poured him a cup of tea and said, I didn't want to tell you what I didn't want to tell you, but the kid with the sword also said something before, so I'll tell you more carefully. The Golden Dragon King also took a sip of the tea ceremony. Yeah. Xiao Yang was also quite happy about this. Although Wang Zhong said something about Shen Sansan, how could what Wang Zhong said be as well informed as his master Jinlong King? Human beings are primates of all things. Although they are inferior in physique to monsters, they are superior to primates with wisdom. In the ancient times, your human ancestors, in order to pursue the idea of longevity, countless generations of wise people went forward one after another, devoting a lifetime of energy, studying hard, and constantly improving, and finally created a way to cultivate vindictiveness. That's how you practice fighting qi today. I have to say that you humans are really smart and know how to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. In ancient times, the status of human beings was only slaves, allegiance to all kinds of ancient powerful beasts, but in your human beings with hard work, you can understand some of the creations of the world, master the tyrannical power as a mortal, and use the power of various secret treasures and powerful weapons to shock the sky. Status. But so far, no one dares to know for sure about immortality in the true sense, but there are some peak powerhouses who stand on various continents. A long life with the same life as heaven and earth. On the Dodi continent, the vast expanse is boundless. In addition to humans and monsters, there are also some unknown wild places. Most of the wild places are dangerous with mountains and rivers, many ferocious beasts and birds of prey, and many evil miasma poisons. There are countless unknown monsters and ghosts hidden in it, cultivating the body in the place where the sun and flames are hidden, in order to transform into a human form. Therefore, there are innumerable mysteries vaguely hidden on the Dodi continent. Among them, there are many people, Buddhas, Taoists, demons, monsters, and ghosts. They can tolerate and fear anything. It's just these supernatural things that are mainly formed by cultivation. Often hidden in the mountains and rivers, it is not known. The Golden Dragon King also took a sip of tea and said. Xiao Yang was also surprised when he heard the words. Obviously, he did not know such important news, and it was not difficult to hear from the words of his master, the Golden Dragon King, that in addition to humans and monsters, there were many mysterious places and cultivation practices on Dodi continent. Way. Humans, Buddhists, Taoists and demons, monsters and ghosts. However, the cultivation methods of these monsters, ghosts, and monsters are the same. After all, they are all based on cultivation in human form. What I want to tell you is also related to this. The so-called Dakian world is a 7-point Dakian. It's divided into 7 realms. They are the human realm, the Buddha realm, the demon realm, the ghost realm, and the heaven realm. The Golden Dragon King also said, Isn't it the great 1,000 worlds? How could it be transformed into the 7 worlds? Xiao Yang's pupils shrank tightly upon hearing this. In those ancient times, it was indeed divided into 1,000 worlds, but now there are some powerful enough powerhouses born in the 7 worlds. They broke through the current plane, gathered together and made an oath, so they separated their respective the world is unified. It's said to be unification, but in fact it's just drawing enough power of belief from the lower realm to make them follow the rumored battle god realm. But how can the Do God be so easy to achieve? In other words, the Dodi continent can be regarded as a branch of the human world. Each world is composed of 3 planes with countless upper, middle, lower, and third planes. The Dochi continent where you and Tuoshi are located can only be regarded as a lower plane at best, and this Dodi continent is enough to be called an upper plane. The Golden Dragon King also said solemnly. Xiao Yang was also dizzy when he heard this. Obviously these things exceeded his understanding, and he immediately rubbed his forehead with his hands. It's still too early to tell you this, but I just want to remind you that the Xiao clan you belong to has provoked a lot of enemies, and you also have the blood of the Xiao clan flowing in you, so your responsibility is becoming more and more important. Moreover, Tuoshi and I also have a feud with some old monsters in the 7 realms. The Golden Dragon King said. His eyes became deep. Xiao Yang also stared blankly at his master Golden Dragon King. Obviously, he had never seen such an appearance since he met his master Golden Dragon King. Hey, really? I remembered something unpleasant. The Golden Dragon King also suddenly smiled at Xiao Yang. Master, you don't have to worry too much, you are a teacher for one day and a father for a lifetime. Xiao Yang also said, so what I want to say is that there are some passages to the demon world, the ghost world, and the demon world in these Shen 3 days. Although it was sealed by the strong together 10,000 years ago, the power of the seal is getting weaker and weaker now, so you have to be more careful. King Jinlong said. Yeah. Hearing this, Xiao Yang also became serious. Obviously he had never dealt with so-called ghosts and demons. The only entrance to the devil world in Shentian Santian is at the bottom of the Wansha River, which is very dangerous. The Wansha River is full of monsters, all of which are very powerful monsters. The cultivation base is so high that it is not an exaggeration to say that it is shocking. Since ancient times, some monsters in the demon world have broken into Zwantiantian several times, bringing endless blood to the upper plane of Zwantiantian, causing countless innocent deaths, and making the superpower houses in Xiantian angry greatly. They joined forces, and finally forcibly drove the devil of the devil world back, and sealed the passage between the devil world and Xiantiantian. Therefore, the legend of the demon world's invasion of Xiantian has a history. The legendary ghost world is said to have its entrance in the ghost town of Shiju, but it is very hidden. In the ghost realm, there are countless ghosts, resentful spirits overflowing, and the yin wind roars, which is very terrifying. Ordinary people will undoubtedly die as soon as they enter the ghost realm. Even if the ordinary Do Di Peak powerhouse enters, it is also more fortunate and less fortunate. It is the most vicious region in the world since ancient times. And the demon world is the gathering place of all the monsters in the world. There are countless monsters and beasts with profound cultivation bases. To put it in layman's terms, the monsters reach a certain strength, but they are promoted to the demon world. The demon world is also considered to be it is stable, rarely invades the human world, and generally does not communicate with the human world. It is said that there are very few people who know about the entrance of this space, so it is extremely mysterious. Among the 7 realms, the human realm is the main one. The 6 worlds other than the human world are actually 6 dimensions. In fact, they are only some specific dimensions. Compared to the human world, they are quite small. And every space depends on the human world to exist, and is connected with the human world. In fact, they all belong to the human world. It's just that there is an invisible barrier between them and the human world, which separates them and forms a unique space that is different from the human world. Hearing this, Xiao Yan was also surprised. The so-called extraterritorial evil race is this demon world. Master, some forces from the demon world and the ghost world dare to invade Xiantian Santian, so aren't they afraid of causing a 3-world war? No, you're wrong. The power of the demon world and the ghost world to invade the human world is only the mainstay, and the number of each world must be maintained on a balance, so this kind of invasion is also a way of survival of the fittest, so the control of the 7 worlds and it didn't interfere much with it. The real power at the top of the 7 realms checks and balances each other, so the 3 realms war is impossible. The Golden Dragon King also said slowly. Yeah. Xiao Yang also felt relieved when he heard the words, and then closed his eyes to recuperate. He was getting closer and closer to that Xian Santian, and he had to return to his peak period to deal with it. During this month, Xiao Yang has also been reclusive, and has been in seclusion in his room to adjust his state. After all, although he understands some of the rules of Xian Santian, it is always better for his strength to return to the peak, so that he can remain unchanged. Should change. Xiao Yang did not expect such a big after-effect of the explosion of the clones condensed by using soul power before in Wucheng. It seems that in the future, using soul power to condense clones should be extra careful. Otherwise, if the power of the soul in the future damages the foundation, then not only will Xiao Yang's strength be stagnant, but even his medicine refining skills will be stagnant. At the level of Emperor Do, it is not surprising that a retreat can be as little as a few months, or as many as a few years. The 1-month period was also slowly coming to an end during Xiao Yang's retreat. Xiao Yang, who was still in seclusion in the room, also slowly exhaled, and then opened his only closed eyes. It's finally recovered. After he finished speaking, he felt that the energy in his body had recovered to its peak, and the power of his soul had also swept through his body. According to Xiao Yang's current estimation, his current strength is also at the peak of the 3-star Do Emperor, and he is only 1 step away from the 4-star Do Emperor. Master, the holy flame you mentioned. Hey. Xiao Yang has also been thinking about the holy flame that his master Jinlong King said was hidden within the Shentian 3 days. Yang has evolved his own cultivation technique. Even though this heavenly rank cultivation technique is not trivial on the Doqi continent, Xiao Yang can still feel the difficulty in Do-Di continent now. If a battle is not resolved quickly, then if it drags on, it will only be Xiao Yang who suffers. You kid. The Golden Dragon King also laughed loudly when he heard that. During the almost a month of your retreat, I also tried to communicate with that holy flame, but I don't know why, it seems that I was blocked by an invisible force. The Golden Dragon King also pondered. Hearing this, Xiao Yang's eyes sank. If this holy flame was blocked by a layer of invisible power, then if he could still be blocked by the power of his master, the Golden Dragon King, that person's strength is also extraordinary. But you don't have to worry too much. Maybe the distance is too far, so the induction is a little weak, but don't worry, I can feel it, this holy flame is also an ownerless thing now. And your worries are superfluous. My current state of soul is less than 1/10 of my peak strength, so being blocked doesn't mean that person is strong, so this is normal. The Golden Dragon King also laughed. Xiao Yang also felt relieved when he heard the words, and then retracted the soul restraint he had arranged. The ferry boat was originally driving in the dark space passage, but after Xiao Yang opened his eyes, a ray of light slowly appeared. Feeling the dazzling brightness, Xiao Yang also put his eyes on him and muttered to himself, "Is it finally coming?" Huh! Just as his eyes were on the exit of the space passage, Xiao Yang suddenly felt an unprecedented strong fighting spirit from that bright place. Such a strong grudge was something Xiao Yang had never seen before. Feeling this situation, Xiao Yang also got up, then opened the window in the room and looked outside. The originally dark space channel also suddenly disappeared, and the birds, beasts and birds of the forest continent also appeared in front of Xiao Yang. It's really strong fighting spirit. However, why is this fighting chi different from what I had absorbed before? Xiao Yang's huge soul power also felt the abundant fighting chi of this land, and he said something strange after absorbing a little bit of it. It's better to say that it is Emperor's chi rather than fighting chi. In a distant space, there is a huge hall. The hall is splendid, with many seemingly expensive jewels, and 7 beads support the entire hall. On the seat of the splendid golden hall master, a seemingly weak woman was sitting quietly with her eyes closed. "What's up? Are you uncomfortable again?" said a blonde man walking towards him. "I'm fine. Since the world master retreated, I always feel like someone is spying on us." The woman also showed a seductive smile. "Who is it? You're actually spying on the secrets of my human world." The blonde man also shot a ray of light from his eyes and shouted loudly while staring into the distance. After swept away to no avail, his eyes softened again, and then he gently picked up the woman sitting above the master. Just as he was about to walk, a red figure appeared out of thin air. "Deputy World Lord, the big thing is bad. Someone from the Xiao family in the immortal cage has escaped." The blonde man's original soft eyes also seemed to have undergone a major change, instantly revealed a fierce light. "Damn. Isn't it asking you to keep watch at any time? Give me all the power to move the human world. The people of the Xiao family must find it, otherwise." The blonde man said that he didn't continue talking here. Yes. The red figure was also in a cold sweat when he heard the words, but the reputation of this deputy world master is. The world master said before the retreat that the people of the Xiao clan would not be imprisoned so easily. "What are you going to do now?" The woman also blinked and looked at the blonde man. "I have my own way," the blonde man said. "What's the matter with you? The Xiao family is not so easy to deal with. Moreover, there seem to be some people on Dochi continent who broke through Dodi and promoted to Dodi continent. Don't you need to send someone to encircle and suppress them?" The woman also muttered to herself. "However, merely Dodi, I can kill it with my hand. Now it's better for Xiao to go after the fleeing Xiao clan. This Xiao clan is really dead." The blonde man also said viciously, then put down the beauty that was like glue in his hand, and hurriedly left the hall. "Master, don't worry, I won't let you down," Xiao Yang also said imposingly. Hearing this, the Golden Dragon King looked at Xiao Yang's scorching eyes, but also felt relieved and sipped his tea carefully. Suddenly the body of the Golden Dragon King's soul state flickered violently. Rather than saying that the Golden Dragon King was originally a body in a state of soul, it is better to say that a mark on the Golden Dragon King's finger flickered and dimmed. Although Xiao Yang didn't know the body of the Golden Dragon King, he also knew from the passage that the Golden Dragon King's strength was definitely extraordinary, so the Golden Dragon King in the soul state did not have the shape of a dragon, but was just like ordinary people. The Golden Dragon King's originally relieved eyes also shrank his pupils tightly, and then he stared at the light mark on his palm. "This light mark. I remember that it was an agreement between me and them before they were caught. As long as this light seal lights up, the Golden Dragon King can capture their specific location. Could it be that they escaped?" The Golden Dragon King also seemed to have seen something, and then said in a voice that could only be heard by himself. Because the imprint on the Golden Dragon King's hand now is impressively possessed by the Dragon Clan, and can sense each other's light imprint at the specific location, but Xiao Yang doesn't know that. Is the position of the light seal constantly moving? It seems that I will meet them later. But Xiao Yang, this kid has to be tight, otherwise this strength is. After thinking about it, the Golden Dragon King regained his composure, but Xiao Yang could find that his master, who used to be listless in the past, is now in the eyes. There is actually a trace of excitement that is difficult for ordinary people to detect. "Master, are you alright?" Xiao Yang obviously didn't know the light seal on his master's Golden Dragon King's hand, so he could only ask. "It's alright, it's just that his power has recovered a little bit." The Golden Dragon King also made a random excuse to fool him. "I will pay close attention to the matter of refining the body." Although Xiao Yang found out that his master, the Golden Dragon King, was different, he didn't have enough strength, and the master wouldn't talk about it, so he didn't make fun of himself. The matter of refining the body is not in a hurry. The most urgent task now is to find a way to cultivate spiritual power, so that you can start to learn the accomplishments of a battle formation master. One more thing is, since it's going to Shentian 3 days, then we have to try to find that holy flame. The Golden Dragon King also said slowly. Hearing this, Xiao Yang was also overjoyed. The holy flame was undoubtedly more powerful than the strange fire in his body, and at the same time, it was more rare. If Xiao Yang were to find it alone, it would undoubtedly be like finding a needle in a haystack. But fortunately, his master, the Golden Dragon King, knew about one of the holy flames, and that holy flame was located within Xian Santian. After you pass the test and join the super sect, you will start working. Until then. The Golden Dragon King looked at Xiao Yang with interest and smiled. November, L.B//JNN. Master, shall I join that super sect? Is it still burning incense pavilion? Hearing that, Xiao Yang also asked. After all, these 9 super sects are quite powerful, and for some reason, Xiao Yang can always feel that his master, the Golden Dragon King, must be with someone within the Shentian 3 days. There is some inevitable relationship between denominations. Fenxiang Pavilion is a very special sect. It is different from other sects. Other sects mainly focus on cultivating fighting chi or puppet skills, but this burning incense pavilion focuses on cultivation, supplemented by cultivation, and cultivation of mind. For this, the disciples admitted by the Fenxiang Pavilion are divided into 2 types. One is the outer disciple, who learns qin, chess, calligraphy and painting, the 4 books and 5 classics, poetry and music. The second is the inner disciple, who learns fighting chi and fighting skills, and becomes a real powerhouse, slaying demons. In addition to the demons, the peace of the party is guaranteed. Therefore, the disciples of the Fenxiang Pavilion are not necessarily all cultivators, but the Fenxiang Pavilion is famous regardless of whether it is an inner or outer disciple. I mean, the Golden Dragon King. Yeah. Xiao Yang's eyes lit up. It was obvious that what his master Jinlong King said was much more detailed than what Wang Zhong said. But Shizu, what about slaying demons? And because these rich Emperor Qi are specially designed for Do Emperor to absorb and cultivate, at the level of Do Emperor, it is quite difficult to absorb Do Qi to increase his cultivation. It is even more difficult for the Emperor to break through the current state. That's why ordinary Do Qi is like a drop in the bucket for Do Di to absorb more, so this Emperor Qi is undoubtedly much stronger than ordinary Do Qi, and it is more suitable for Do Di strong to absorb and cultivate. After all, this Emperor's Qi is the greatest treasure known as the Do Di rank. The Golden Dragon King also laughed. Hearing this, Xiao Yang also nodded. No wonder he couldn't be promoted to Do Di in Do Qi continent anyway. It turns out that a strong Do Di must absorb Emperor Qi. From this so-called Emperor Qi is enough to the importance of the strong fighting Emperor. The so-called Emperor Qi also has another title on the Do Qi continent, the origin Qi of the Emperor. Wake up, get ready, it will be Xian Santian soon. Just when Xiao Yang was surprised by the Emperor's anger, a voice also entered their minds. The source of this voice is Hu Du. When everyone heard that, they also packed up their belongings a little, and then walked out one after another. Hu Du saw that everyone appeared equally well, and he nodded with satisfaction. After all, when he was picking up the lead before, someone assassinated each other, which caused the task of his lead to fail. In half a day, we will arrive at Xian Santian. When the time comes, you will follow me to the destination of this reception. After speaking, he closed his eyes. I heard that we didn't go directly to Xian Santian. Before joining Xuantian's sect, we have to conduct a test and selection. Ads by Pub Future. And the location of testing and selection is the end of our trip. Where are we going to meet countless other geniuses who are also from the Xianling continent. But I also believe that there will be a more exciting stage. Wang Zhong also said. Then let's see who will stand at the top of this trial. Sun Ming is also not weak at all. Wang Zhongdao can't ask for it. Xiao Yang also responded, obviously this will be a brand new beginning. Shen 3 days. I'm really looking forward to it. Xiao Yang muttered to himself. The few people on the side also saw Xiao Yang and the others were so arrogant, and their blood was boiling. They all had different looks in their eyes. Obviously, they had already made plans in their hearts. In Xuantian's highest place, a figure with a long sword on his back also stood on it. The mountains here are dangerous, the mountains are high, the wild beasts are frequent in the mountains, and there are few people. It is a desolate place. But at the same time, it is also an extremely suitable place for cultivation. Are you all ready? The figure with the long sword on his back also said softly to the void. It's all ready, just wait for the people who do to lead to arrive, and then we can start. A respectful voice also twisted from the space and an old man in white appeared. That's good. Go down. The figure with the long sword on his back also said. Yes. The void space twisted and disappeared. The ghost world, the passage between the devil world and my Xian Santian seems to have some different movements recently. Xiantian Santian is the place with the largest population and the most powerful people on the Xianling continent. It is also the place with the most fertile land and resources. Because in these countless years, Xian Santian has nurtured countless children of the heavens. Some of them have become overlords and established factions. However, with the invasion of some natural disasters or small-scale wars in other parts of the Xianling continent, some people have also been destroyed. After all, This is the place where the powerhouses of the Shenling continent gather. It is also possible to find Dao shelter here, and then multiply in the city. Therefore, there are also some villages and small families with relatively few people. Most of them are attached to Shen San. Under the super sect of the sky, there are some exceptions to be self-sufficient. Shen San Tian is mostly a mountain range full of emperor energy. Every mountain is huge, and there are many legends of all kinds within the mountain, such as the love between people and ghosts, and the 3 lives and 3 generations are continuing their love. In the mountains of these peaks, in addition to the presence of monsters, there are also hidden ghosts and ghosts who broke through the seal and entered Daoshen 3 days before, and participated in the attack on Shentian 3 days. They escaped by luck when they were sealed, but even so, they didn't dare to provoke human beings too much. After all, if they angered those powerhouses within Shen Santian, their fate would also be. However, although these monsters dare not provoke any supersects, they have caused huge damage to ordinary people. After all, most of the ordinary people are of the fighting saint level, and their aptitude is mediocre. It is quite difficult to deal with these powerful monsters, so for the sake of safety, some people built mountain temples around the mountains to seek the protection of the mountain gods. Years have passed, and there are more and more mountain temples in the mountains. Perhaps the mountain gods have sensed the will of the people and thus show their power. In the past 100 years, the people on this land have rarely had accidents. Respect is amazing. In this regard, the super sects within the 3 days of Shen are also helpless. Although they have sent a lot of manpower and material resources to encircle and suppress the remaining demons, ghosts, and monsters, I don't know why they can always cleverly avoid the encirclement and suppression, so this is also a problem that plagues the super sect's big problem. In addition, Zhuangtianshan is also a blessed land. Each mountain has some secrets. It is rumored that each mountain has its own beautiful legend. In general, Shen Santian can be summed up as 100,000 mountains, but in addition, there are still some unknown wild places, just where it belongs to the restricted area of human beings. Even though there are rumors that there are many treasures, but the strong people around the world do not dare to set foot easily. After all, the information about the wild places is also too rare. Treasure and life are obviously more important than the latter. This is Shen 3 days. The ferry also landed slowly on a flat lay. It's here, come with me. Hudu also opened his eyes and said, "Is this Shen Santian?" Xiao Yang also muttered to himself. This is the outermost part of Shentian San, but the final destination of the people we are in charge of receiving and guiding will all come here, and people from the 9 supersects will be jointly responsible for a series of tests and selections. Only those who meet the standards will be selected. It is possible to enter the Shentian Santian to join the supersect, and if we fail, we can only return you to the same path. After speaking, he waved his hand, and a group of fighting chi was at the feet of the 9 people, following the leadership of Hudu, toward the ground slowly descended. The 9 people sitting cross-legged on the Do Chi light group also lit up with curiosity. Obviously, they all felt the strong Do Chi, and the 7 cities where they were located were countless times stronger. The Do Chi in the 7 major cities can also be called Emperor Chi, but its concentration is only a little stronger than the Do Chi on the Do Chi continent, so it is no wonder that a few people are so curious when they feel this strong Emperor Chi. Because based on their perception, they naturally knew that if they could absorb this rich imperial energy for a long time, it would be of great benefit to their cultivation. The crowd slowly descended on Hudu's Do Chi light group. During the process of their whereabouts, they suddenly discovered that they were looking into the distance from the place where they landed. Pieces of rolling mountain peaks rise and fall one after another, the trees in the peaks stand tall like giants in the sky, and the clouds and mists are like a fairyland on earth. Taking a closer look, the mist-like white gas seems to form a natural protective layer, slowly surrounding these mountains. In the mountains, you can also see some looming buildings, presumably these buildings are sects. Xiao Yang also exuded the power of his soul and felt it carefully, and slowly he felt a lot of powerful aura from these mountains. Even the head of the Yu family, Yu, and the envoy Hudu in front of him were jumping off the beam in front of him. The clown is general, and there are some extremely obscure breaths looming. It is indeed the place where the powerhouses of the mysterious spirit continent gather. Xiao Yang also sighed involuntarily. Ha ha ha, that's natural. Hudu also appreciated Xiao Yang, so he responded. Senior, what is this white mist, and my soul power doesn't seem to be able to sense it. Liu Yin was obviously also curious, and the little cold on her shoulders also exuded a look of joy. Get excited. These white mists are the restrictions of various mountain peaks. Under the restrictions, no matter how powerful you are also prohibited from flying and stepping in the air, so all areas in Shentian San have a strong restriction. First, these mountains are the location of some sects, in order to protect some of their little-known secrets, even though the sect is not famous, but there is still some background, and secondly, it is also to resist the invasion of monsters. After all, Shen San the sky is a very fertile land, and it has made many monsters jealous. And every year, there are monsters and monsters that endanger some places, so in Shenzhen 3 days, compared with the monsters and monsters are obviously more disgusting. Hudu also said, obviously he also has a grudge against these monsters and monsters. Okay, let's go to the test now. After the test, we can rest for a few days. After a few days, it will be the so-called selection. I don't know how many people will be in your group this time. Hudu also saw what Liu Yin was about to ask, and stopped him. Hearing this, several people also nodded their heads. Although they were not in control of the ferry, the month-long journey also made them physically and mentally exhausted, but this was also true for DI powerhouses. Does not affect the test at all. A few people were still in the air, and Xiao Yang was sharp-eyed. On the flat ground where their ferry was docked, a figure in blue clothes with the word puppet appeared early, as if he was waiting for them. I don't know what happened this afternoon, but the power was cut off all of a sudden at home, and the mobile phone couldn't connect to the internet. I'm really sorry. Next, I will take you to test your talents. It's up to you to decide how many talents you can classify. After speaking, he looked at Xiao Yang with great interest. As soon as Hudu's voice fell, the Dochi light group riding on the 9 people slowly landed on the ground. As soon as everyone reached the ground, they immediately got up and stretched out. Who would have expected that when he turned his head, he saw a huge square 1,000 meters away, and behind the square were some quite exquisite buildings. Whether it was the square or the side of the building, there were some well-trained soldiers guarding it. Seeing this heavily guarded place, Xiao Yang didn't look too hard. Master Hu has worked hard. Master Hu, let's go and rest. It's just fine for these people to take it for the test. Watching Hudu and the 9 people slowly descend to the ground, the man who was standing on the ground wearing the word puppet in his clothes respectfully faced Hudu Dao. No, it just so happens that I have to go too, let's go together. Hudu also refused. On the one hand, there are people among these people who need his special attention. He also wants to know what kind of talent this Xiao Yang can be rated, and the third rank should be reluctant. But even if it is a third-class talent, he can get a lot of benefits. On the other hand, Hudu was also worried. After all, he still had some right to speak here. If something happened to the two of them, he wouldn't be able to explain it to Yueyu. After all, the two had a deadly friendship. Yeah. The man wearing the word puppet also replied softly, and then led the way in front. This is the senior brother of the puppet mansion who is in charge of taking your test, and his name is Mo Chen. At a young age, he has reached the strength of a 4-star Dodi, and his ability to manipulate puppets with one hand is not weak. Hudu also introduced to everyone. Hello, senior brother Mo. Several people present also said respectfully. After all, when you first came to the ramp, you must have some etiquette. Xiao Yang also discovered that although Mo Chen's strength is only in the early stage of the 4-star Dodi, it is easy for him to deal with it, but he is a puppet mansion after all. It also felt quite exhausting. After all, since this puppet technique is stronger than his master, the Golden Dragon King, he is also highly praised. Mo Chen took the lead, Hudu was behind, Xiao Yang and the others followed them towards the huge square. Master Hu, you are already the last batch of people who have been picked up here, and all the people who have been picked up from other places have been tested until yesterday. Mo Chen also said. Hey, there's no way. After all, it's on the edge of our Xianling continent. It's to be expected that the back and forth will take a long time. Hudu also laughed. Master Hu has found a good seedling this time. Mo Chen also joked. Because everyone knows that picking up messengers is a tiring job, not to mention the boring time of going back and forth. On the way to pick up and lead, if you encounter some people with bad intentions attacking, it will not be worth the loss. However, as a price, as long as the envoy can find a disciple with third-class talent, the sect that the disciple joins in the future will also give the envoy some considerable compensation. Are you a good seedling? There are just a few. He also looked at the 9 people behind him, and laughed. How many people are there in our contact point this time? How many people are talented? Hudu also suddenly remembered and asked. This. Mo Chen couldn't help being speechless when Hudu asked this question. This is some secret that can't be said. I really blame myself for this. However, the relationship between Uncle Hudu and the person in charge of our contact point seems to be good. I forgot all about it, I can't say it. Hudu also looked at Mo Chen and said. Neither. Our takeover test site this time is divided into 36, and we are one of them. According to the statistics of yesterday, the total number of people who came here is 1,361. There are a total of 1,300 people who have passed the talent test. It is strange to say that there are 61 people who disappeared out of thin air. This can make the person in charge of our stronghold anxious. After all, our people can come here when they see it with their own eyes. I got off the ferry and walked towards the test site in the square, but I didn't find these 61 people. Mo Chen also frowned, obviously this matter bothered them. This is a test and selection competition organized by the 9 super sects in the Shentian 3 days. Whoever eats the guts of the bear heart and leopard will not dare to be arrogant here, let alone grab it out of thin air in this heavily guarded stronghold and come to join the sect disciple. After all, the Do-D continent is an upper plane, and it is not comparable to the Do-Chi continent. If a Do-D powerhouse wants to break open space out of thin air, it is only necessary to reach the 6-star Do-D and above. How come? I remember this kind of thing never happened before. Hoodoo also began to ponder. Because 61 people were missing, it was enough to show the importance of this matter. Hey, how can there be some residual aura similar to the ghosts in the ghost world? Although it is very weak, it seems that it has been covered up by people. Just when Xiao Yang heard that Mo Chen said that 61 people were missing, in the ring, his master Jinlong also said suddenly and quietly. When Xiao Yang heard what his master Jinlong King said, he also rolled his eyes thoughtfully, and then followed Mo Chen and Hoodoo and walked towards the back of the square. Yu, who was on the side, passed by the place Xiao Yang had just had, and was suddenly dizzy, and then the mysterious rune on her forehead slowly emitted an inconspicuous light. Xiao Yang also kept an eye on Yueru's state at all times, and just felt that something was wrong with Yueru, and before she could ask any more questions, Yueru fell to the ground as if she had collapsed. To say that it is late is fast. Xiao Yang, who has a quick eye and a quick hand, supports Yu and doesn't care about other things. The gentle power in his body is transmitted to Yueru's body. After Xiao Yang's gentle power within her body, Yu's beautiful eyes moved slightly, and then she was dripping with sweat. Are you all right? Xiao Yang also said solemnly, obviously not knowing what happened to Yueru. It's all right, I just suddenly lost my strength for no apparent reason. I'm much better now. Yueru also said. Then Yueru also saw Xiao Yang's one hand supporting her shoulder, the other hand sending gentle power from her lower abdomen, so Yueru turned red without even passing through her ears. It's fine, I'll help you go. Xiao Yang also looked at the tired Yu and said. Yeah. Yueru also said softly. Oh, it's actually an automatic protector. It seems that the power of inheritance on this girl is really extraordinary. But looking at the power of inheritance, as I expected, it should be a life and death enemy with that ghost world. The Golden Dragon King also said to himself when he discovered Yueru's sudden voluminous mark. Have you reported to the above? Hoodoo obviously realized the importance of the matter, and his tone of speech changed. No. It was suppressed by our person in charge. Mo Chen was also frightened by this sudden momentum. Who is the person in charge here? Immediately. Take me to see him immediately. Hoodoo also shouted loudly, and then scolded him. This is a joke about other people's lives. Yes, it's your senior brother Fu Yi. Mo Chen quickly agreed. Fu Ye, take me to see him. What about these people? Go together. After the two of them finished speaking, they speeded up and walked towards an exquisite room at the back of the square. When everyone in the back heard the words, they also knew the importance of the matter, and immediately followed without hesitation. Come out for this old man. Hoodoo was also very carefree, obviously he was still a long way from the door, and then he shouted. Haha, who am I to be yelling at the door of the person in charge, so it's Hoodoo, you old man. A haggard-faced middle-aged man also came out of the door, and said to Hoodoo, there was a hint of sarcasm in the voice. The middle-aged man also knew that Hoodoo and their general manager were brothers from the same sect. Get out of the way. Hoodoo apparently ignored the ridicule of the middle-aged man, and said to the person blocking the road. Oh, why did you come back at the end this time, the old man? All the people we brought in have already completed the test yesterday, so you're after all, Hoodoo was a peak powerhouse of the 5-star Do Emperor, and his Shun Yu was only in the middle stage of the 5-star Do Emperor, so he was one head shorter than Hoodoo. It doesn't hurt to stand and talk. Hoodoo is also a person with vicious eyes. Seeing Shun Yu so plain, after thinking about it, the person in charge will definitely not let Shun Yu know about the disappearance. He calmed down and replied calmly. On the edge of the Xianling continent, some of the places are just backcountry. What kind of talented people can come out? It seems that this time you are running for nothing. Shun Yu also said with a smile. Shun Yu's words just fell, when he saw the grudges of the 9 people behind the old Hoodoo suddenly exuding, and then he shook his head. But the strongest is only the peak of the Samsung Do Di, such a strength is not even a third-class talent. If you can't produce someone with extraordinary talent, you won't have to worry about it. Since things are done, let's go. Hoodoo also turned to look at the 9 people behind him, and then said. Old Hoodoo, the person in charge is too busy right now, so he might not be able to see you. Shun Yu also frowned. Do you still want to suffer from flesh and blood? Hoodoo was too lazy to pay attention to this Shun Yu, and his terrifying fighting spirit was exuding. You. Hearing the mention of the past, Shun Yu's face also showed a trace of displeasure, apparently because he was afraid of this Hoodoo. Let's see. After speaking, he also left the door, and then he didn't forget to curse a few words before leaving. Ha ha ha, I knew it was you, Hu. The doorway that was blocked by Shun Yu suddenly shook violently, and then everyone saw a middle-aged man in a robe appearing out of thin air. After all, no one will do this except you at my door. After the middle-aged man appeared, he put one hand on Hudu's shoulder, and then slowly smiled at Hudu. Obviously, the relationship between the two is also very good, and then the huge grudge on Hudu was slowly withdrawn from his body. Tear space. 6-star Do-D strong? Xiao Yang also exclaimed when he saw this. After all, in this Do-D continent, in order to tear apart the space, apart from using some very rare divine weapons, it is only possible to achieve it with strength. Looking at this high-spirited middle-aged man, there seems to be no other fluctuations in his body, so Xiao Yang is absolutely certain that this person in front of him is a genuine 6-star Do Emperor powerhouse. You and Shun, you really do this every time. The middle-aged man also laughed. This is our chief executive here, Wu Jiang. Mo Chen also hurriedly introduced to everyone. Everyone hears the words and greets them with respect. It's good to be back. Is the road going well? Wu Jiang also asked. It's still like that, it's just that it took a little too long to come and go. Hudu also responded with a smile. I told you not to go anywhere, but you didn't listen. Wu Jiang also shook his head and said. Isn't Yueyu there? I just happened to drop by to see him. After all, we parted back then, but we haven't been together for a long time. Hudu also looked at Yueru and said. Yueyu seems to have another daughter, and she's not too young. I don't know what's going on now. Wu Jiang also looked at the sky and said. Nuo, isn't that right? Hudu pointed slightly, pointing to where Yueru was. This breath. Wu Jiang also frowned and sensed the breath on Yueru's body. NOVLB//JN.C///OM. The younger generation has seen Uncle Wu, and has long heard of his father's two life-threatening friends, Uncle Hu and Uncle Wu. Yueru also spoke wisely to Wu Jiang. Hey, it turns out that you are the daughter of Yueyu. No wonder I said the aura on your body is a little familiar. Wu Jiang said with a smile. Is your father all right? I heard that he was attacked by monsters before, but his strength was not moving forward. Wu Jiang said. I went to Qing Cheng under his control. His injury is also healed, and his current strength is also in the late stage of the 5-star Do-D. Hudu smiled. That's good. The three of us parted ways that day, but we haven't seen each other for many years. When I'm done working here, I'll find him to drink him for 3 days and 3 nights. Wu Jiang also smiled bitterly. Yueru also responded with a smile. Everyone looked at Yueru, but they didn't expect that this seemingly small Yu family had something to do with these two. Don't look at me, these are my father's affairs, and he seldom tells me. Seemingly aware of Xiao Yang's surprised eyes, Yu also tried her best to explain it for fear of being misunderstood. Hearing that, Xiao Yang was also dumbfounded and then looked at Hudu and Wu Jiang. Come in and talk about something. After a brief exchange between the two, Wu Jiang also found that Hudu's expression was not very good, and it was obvious that there was something important, and said, Yeah. Hudu replied. Mo Chen, take them down to test. Then report the results to me. This group of people seems to have good seedlings. Wu Jiang also glanced at the 9 people in front of him, and then said to Mo Chen. Everyone was swept away by Wu Jiang's seemingly simple gaze, but their bodies were slightly shocked, as if they had been probed completely. Yes. Mo Chen also respectfully said. Follow me, everyone. Mo Chen also said to Ju Ren. Hearing that, the 9 people also followed Mo Chen away and went to the testing place. As for the missing persons, it is obviously not something they can worry about. What did the missing person say? Hudu also said straight to the point when he saw everyone leaving and only himself and Wu Jiang were left in the house. The missing people this time seems a bit strange. According to the people below, the number of people who are in charge of receiving and guiding in our base is all in full. At the same time, they also saw them get off the ferry. And we have people here who are in charge of patrolling the whole process. From the ferry boat to the test square, it's really strange that they just disappeared out of thin air. How so? Did someone play tricks in secret? Hudu also asked. No, I have put all the suspects in this stronghold under house arrest, but I haven't asked why. I suspect that this is most likely a conspiracy. Wu Jiang also changed his smile and said solemnly. After all, he manages this stronghold. This stronghold serves as the destination for receiving messengers, and is responsible for registering and testing new disciples. This sudden disappearance of 61 people, because of Wu Jiang's calm personality, can't help but feel very difficult. After all, although he is not afraid of the families behind the missing disciples, these newcomers have disappeared from the site he managed. Even it is not easy to explain to the sect, let alone the families behind these missing newcomers. This made Wu Jiang anxious. When Hudu heard the words, he was also extremely worried. After all, the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. Moreover, if this matter is not resolved and the people above know it, then the friend of his life and death will be in trouble. At this time, Hu Du also knew why he wanted to suppress this matter. Otherwise, once it became a big issue, it would not be good for anyone, but the top priority now is how to solve it. Have you searched for this base carefully? Ferry to the square, including the residences of those missing? Hu Du also rolled his eyes, thinking of a solution. I've searched for them. I personally went to check their residences and found nothing unusual. Wu Jiang also said. Hearing this, Hu Du also frowned. If it is said that the strength of his brother, the 6-star Do Di, has not been found abnormal, then this matter is very strange. But you said that the road from the ferry to the test square has not been inspected. After all, there are soldiers patrolling everywhere, and their quality is obvious to all, so there is no inspection. Wu Jiang also seemed to remember something, then said, yeah. Hu Du, who was originally worried after hearing this, also had his eyes lit up. Go there and see. You can't let go of any place, Hu Du also said. You arrived after a long journey, so let's take a break and talk about it later. Wu Jiang also said with concern. Go. After Hu Du finished speaking, he took the lead and walked out. Wu Jiang was also quite moved when he saw Hu Du, who was acting resolutely, because he also knew that so many people were missing. Therefore, Hu Du's hurried actions on this trip are undoubtedly to help himself. I hope the two boys from the Jiang family are all right, otherwise it will be difficult for me to communicate with each other. After thinking about this, Wu Jiang also followed, and the two walked towards the path outside the square. On the path from the ferry to the test plaza, it looked the same as usual, but under that path, it was a different scene. 1,000 meters below the path, there is another look. Thousands of meters below the path, in a dark stone room, there is a cold pool in the center of the stone room, and there are many black figures standing beside the cold pool. Looking at this place carefully, the cold pond is not big, only about a jong in diameter, the water is dark black, and it looks very deep. A black figure stood by the pool, looked at the water quietly, and suddenly asked, how are things going? It's almost there, all 59 humans are asleep, as long as the time comes to throw them into the pool. A weaker figure stood up and said, then there are 2 more? The figure standing in the pool clearly said angrily, there are still 2 people who were caught, and they escaped. The weaker figure also whispered, trash. After saying that, the figure standing by the pool opened his mouth wide, and the weak figure who just answered was directly swallowed by it. After it was swallowed, there were no traces left, but the aura on the figure by the pool now grew a little bit stronger, making it look extraordinarily eerie and gloomy. Search for me, otherwise he will end. After speaking, many figures under Chixia also moved. Selection of disciples, this time, you will definitely lose more than you gain, he muttered to himself while looking at the deep pool water. There are too many roads in this passage, extending in all directions. I saw 2 figures running fast in a tunnel, as if they were avoiding something. One of the tall figures shouted loudly, and the wooden sword in his hand suddenly burst out with a powerful blue light, slashing down with a sword in the sky. Immediately, the powerful sword energy instantly hit the wall of the passage, and a loud noise came, and the passage was also blocked by its fragments, but the fragments splashed several feet high. Immediately afterwards, many figures were turned into countless black smoke by this terrifying sword, but the black gas also slowly emerged from the inside of the passage, and then condensed a black figure that was exactly the same as the original. Brother, what is this? A protected figure also said. Don't talk. I feel that these things are not human. Their aura is a little eerie. The figure who had just split the sword energy also said. It's strange to say that they came here to test, and after getting off the ferry, they were walking to the square when they suddenly fainted and woke up in this dark passage. Thanks to their strong skills, they were not caught by those people, so they escaped as soon as they woke up. And this channel seems to be slowly swallowing their do chi, so do chi can't be used too much. After the tall figure slashed out with a sword, he bit his right index finger, and threw his blood essence with terrifying power behind them viciously, and immediately pulled up his younger brother, who was weaker than himself, and started walking. At this time, I don't care if the source is damaged, otherwise if they are caught. I saw that blood essence suddenly turned into a blue dragon, and instantly poured into the passage behind them. As soon as Tsunglong appeared in the passage, his power suddenly exploded, and the countless black smoke chasing after him also turned into thin strands and disappeared into the air. However, the entire passageway shook violently. Feeling this vibration, the figure by the pool also made some strange noises. But just when he was puzzled, a black beam of light shot out from the bottom of the pool next to him, breaking through the suppression of the pool water and rushing into the mid-air of the stone chamber. But as soon as the black beam of light rushed out of the bottom of the pool, it immediately gathered into a dazzling and even weirder black beam from all directions, and instantly forced the black beam of light back down. It's still early, don't worry. The figure standing by the pool also said greedily. The tall figure pulled the weak younger brother forward continuously. I saw that his younger brother was surprised, and his mouth kept screaming. and the tall figure followed the voice of his younger brother, and when he saw the two figures in front, his expression changed greatly, and he shouted to his younger brother, "Come on, go back and tell Mr. Wu that this trial cannot start." After speaking, he pushed it out, and then blocked the passage. Then one person took over the two people in front of him with two rays of light, one black and one white, and the two rays of light swept away wildly, slashing the tall figure. At this time, the man next to Hankai took off his disguise, and it turned into a black gas, and then formed a black figure, very gloomy, like a ghost. Mo Chen first paid attention to Murray with an impatient look on his face. He casually looked at the crystal ***** and furnishings in the room, and then cursed at something. Immediately afterwards, there was the living dead ginseng deficiency, which still looked pale. When he entered the room, he didn't look at it much. Instead, he covered his mouth with a piece of gauze, and some dark blood was coughed out. Then, with Mo Chen's vicious eyes, he also discovered that Mueller and Shen Shu seemed to be just as out of place as the others. Of course, Mo Chen didn't interfere too much. After all, this is their own business, and they are also paying attention to several other people. The next person who came in was a woman with the appearance of a small beast standing on her shoulder. The small beast on her shoulder was also chirping, exuding an invisible cold air, which made the temperature in the entire room suddenly rise. "Drop. Xiaohan, don't be fooled." Liu Yin also said sharply to Xiaohan on his shoulder, and then stroked the latter's feathers with one hand, which is strange to say. A blue light on Xiaohan's body melted away, and the severe cold in the room also disappeared. Then Liu Yin also looked around the room like a curious baby. As for the demon charm, it also exudes a seductive aura and is stable. Now in the room, a pair of eyes glowing with autumn water is also slowly turning. Although this is definitely related to the practice of his practice, it is because Mo Chen's concentration is also control. He couldn't stop, so he quickly turned his eyes away. Wang Zhong and Sun Ming, a martial idiot and a sword idiot, naturally wouldn't go to investigate the house. As for Yueru, Feng Yi and Xiao Yang, their eyes never left Mo Chen's body from the very beginning, and Mo Chen also felt that these three were obviously highly educated. Then he nodded in relief, as if he had some ideas. "This is where we store the instruments used for the test. The test is divided into 4 parts. The first part is the strength test, the second part is the soul strength test, the third part is the physical fitness test, and the fourth part is the according to the above 3 test data, the talents of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are comprehensively given. The previous people have all been tested, and now the people in our stronghold are less than a few of you who haven't tested yet. After all the tests are completed, the talent points of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be announced uniformly. As for the so-called trials, it's based on your test results, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 talents." Mo Chen also said slowly, so as to give them some time to react. When everyone heard the words, it was also suddenly clear that the so-called test consists of 3 parts, one's own strength and soul strength plus the test of physical strength, then the 5th level talent in the 4th part is the responsibility of their responsible person. "So which of you will come first?" Mo Chen also gave a brief introduction and then said, "Everything is difficult at the beginning, let me come first." Sun Ming also grinned, obviously not a little worried about this so-called test. After all, although his soul strength is weaker, he has strength and physical strength. It is a great advantage, and Sun Ming is also confident. Among the 9 people in the test, there will be no one whose physical strength exceeds his own. "Okay, come on, just pour your vindictive energy into the crystal ball." Mo Chen was relieved to hear that, and then took out a gorgeous crystal ball. Sun Ming strode forward, and then the breath in his body increased to the limit, the muscles on his body also swelled, and the blue veins burst out. A trace of grudge separated from Sun Ming's body, uncontrollably, and then went towards the crystal ball in Mo Chen's hand. "Samsung Do DS Peak." Mo Chen felt the light overflowing from the crystal ball, and then said. Hearing this, everyone was not surprised. After all, before entering the ruins, Sun Ming already possessed the strength of the late Samsung Do Di. Next, Mo Chen also said after registering. The next few people followed Sun Ming's method and injected them into the crystal ball in exactly the same way. Wang Zhong, the late Samsung Do Di. Demon Charm, the pinnacle of Samsung Do Di. Feng Yi, the pinnacle of Samsung Do Di. Muller, the late Samsung Do Di. The living dead are Ginseng, the peak of the 3-star fighting emperor. Feng Yi, the pinnacle of Samsung Do Di. Yueru, the late Samsung Do Di. Xiao Yang, the pinnacle of Samsung Do Di. After simply registering the strength levels of the 9 people, Mo Chen is also preparing to start the second part of the test. But in the first part of the test of strength just now, Mo Chen discovered some of the secrets of these 9 people. For example, Wang Zhong, although only the strength of the late Samsung Do Emperor, but the sharp eyes and the giant sword behind him, if there is no sword energy, is slowly diffused, although even the strength of this 3-star Do Emperor in the late stage, ordinary people do not dare to underestimate. Next is Feng Yi, a woman in a colorful skirt, a woman with two attributes of wind and thunder. As we all know, there is only one kind of attribute in a normal person. First, it is for the convenience of cultivation. Otherwise, there are too many attributes, and the reason is that the art is not overwhelming. On the other hand, there is one kind of attribute and another kind of attribute. In between, it is extremely difficult to control, let alone cultivate to this level. It is unexpected that this seemingly silent woman in a colorful skirt is so powerful. Followed by a woman named Yuaru with a faint smile, Mo Chen felt that there was something familiar in the aura when she was emitting aura. She seemed to have seen it somewhere before and thought about it carefully. This seems to be the aura of the sect master of a certain sect in Shentian 3 days, but I don't know why this woman also has the same aura. Next is Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang gave him the feeling that it was unfathomable. Even with Mo Chen's initial strength of the 4-star Do Emperor, he couldn't find out why. Although Mo Chen's strength is not a frontal battle, but the technique of manipulating puppets. The strength of the few people around Xiao Yang has also made great progress, and he is quite surprised. Obviously, they all have some strange adventures in the ruins, otherwise it is impossible to advance in a short period of time, but Xiao Yang also did not worried, because now his soul power has recovered to the peak, not to mention that the avatar of the Emperor's ordinary soul entity and the avatar of the fighting technique, together with the many means of the Lotus of Destruction and the Golden Demon Puppet, also have enough confidence to stand out in this trial. The second part is the soul test. Mo Chen also said. This second part of the soul test is also very simple. As long as you stimulate the soul power in your soul realm, this instrument will automatically recognize its level. Soul strength is divided from 1 to 10, 1 is the lowest and 10 is the highest. Come on. After Mo Chen finished speaking, the lights in the room suddenly went out, and an extra radiant bead appeared in his hand. Good guy, it's actually sucking the spirit beads. Liu Yin also said when she saw the beads in Mo Chen's hand. The eldest brother of the two who escaped in the passage is named Jiang Yu, and the younger brother is named Jiang Yuan. The two are brothers and have some connections with Wu Jiang. They came here this time without telling their family. Wu Jiang is naturally worried about their safety. Jiang Yu was quite satisfied when he saw his younger brother go far away, and then turned his head to see the two figures in front of him, black and white, like ghosts. His face changed slightly. The enemy in front of him used to be, but he has never dealt with it, and he does not remember that his family has provoked an enemy of this level. After a brief thought to no avail, Jiang Yu also acted decisively, because he knew that with his current strength and in this strange space, he could not beat any of the two in front of him. And they had just woken up from a coma, and they found that besides them, many figures were also caught here. Although I don't know who these are and what they are doing, there is no doubt about it. There must have been a conspiracy to it. So he was attacked by two black and white figures in the short crotch, and then he ran away in the opposite direction of his brother's escape. Damn. Who are these people? Extraterritorial evil race? But why do I feel that their breath is not like that alien evil race? The breath is gloomy and weird. Jiang Yu also wondered. Chase. One person. They must not be allowed to escape, otherwise you will know the end. The black figure said to the white figure. I know, it's really long-winded. After speaking, the white figure's speed skyrocketed, chasing towards the place where Jiang Yuan escaped, and at that speed, a trace of strange and gloomy gas also remained. Let's see where you are fleeing now. The black figure was chasing after Jiang Yu's escape. It's here. Hudu also said to Wu Jiang. Then, regardless of Wu Jiang, he directly and carefully probed the land. 100 years. 200 meters. 700 meters. This was already Hudu's limit, but he still didn't find anything unusual, so he had no choice but to do it. Haven't you checked this place? Hudu also said depressedly, how can such a thing be sloppy? If one accidentally provokes the above to blame, the consequences are very serious. It is said that there have been problems here before, but the number of people is within the controllable range, so it was suppressed by the high-level force. Wu Jiang also said slowly. How come? It's all about life. Hudu was obviously angry and said angrily. Hey, old Hu, listen to me. This stronghold I'm in charge of has only had this kind of thing happen in recent years, but every time the number of people missing is only within 10, so the top management didn't pay too much attention. It's just this, I don't know why so many people disappeared at one time. Wu Jiang also said in a humming tone. As you know, this is not our Shentian sect after all, it's just a small sect site, so we just borrow it. It's not easy to dig 3 feet to investigate these sites, otherwise. Wu Jiang was also there. Degree said. This. Hudu's originally angry eyes also became blurred. His friend of life and death said it so clearly, he didn't know where he was. What Wu Jiang means is that this is not their own territory, they just borrowed the entrance of the local sect for testing and selection, and he has checked all the places that can be explored. Although there are some places that are suspicious, they are not authorized to enter. Just like the piece of land under their feet, this is the cultivation square of other sects, and it is impossible to dig 3 feet into the ground to investigate. This is the territory of that sect. Hu Du also whispered. Obviously Wu Jiang also knew that there might be some problems with this sect. This is. Wu Jiang also said in a low voice. Hey, what are you doing? A little boy with a milky voice also watched Wu Jiang and Hu Du go back and forth on this path, and couldn't help but ask. It's nothing, we're taking a walk. Old Hu, do you think so? Wu Jiang also patted Hu Du on the shoulder. Yes. Hu Du also laughed, and then the two walked away slowly. This person is the only son of this sect. Wu Jiang also said. Well, why is this child's aura a bit weird? Hu Du pondered. Have you found it too? I sensed it long ago, but I just don't know what it is. Wu Jiang also said. Seeing what Hu Du was trying to say, Wu Jiang also gestured shyly, then attached to his ear and said something. In the square, a group of people also walked slowly with Mo Chen. After all, they missed the good opportunity of testing, and now they are only testing for them alone. Master, what did you say you sensed just now? Xiao Yang also wondered. On the small road where he got off the ferry, he felt an eerie aura. If it wasn't for the reminder from his master, the Golden Dragon King, Xiao Yang wouldn't have found it. That thing, if I guessed correctly, the breath should be unique to the creatures in the ghost world. We will turn it into a ghost. The Golden Dragon King also said indifferently. Ghost energy? Xiao Yang also said in surprise. Obviously he was quite puzzled when he heard this title for the first time. The so-called ghost chi is the same as the energy in you, but it is called fighting chi in you. However, this ghost energy is extremely eerie and strange. Once it is invaded into the body, it will affect the mind if it is serious. The Golden Dragon King also explained. Hearing this, Xiao Yang was also suddenly enlightened. How come the ghosts of this ghost world are here in Xian Santian, and will the population they use have something to do with them? Xiao Yang also muttered to himself. Hey, these are not your worries. What you have to do now is to join the Burning Incense Pavilion through selection after the test. As for the missing matter, Wu Jiang will naturally handle it. But you have to be careful yourself. After all, the ghosts of the ghost world will appear here, and there must be some conspiracy from them. Yeah. Xiao Yang also responded. What's wrong? You also watched Xiao Yang laugh and frown for a while, but the second monk was really confused, so he asked aloud. It's fine. Xiao Yang was also afraid of being discovered, and tried his best to cover it up. Liu Yin on the side and Xiao Han on her shoulders were also looking around. Apparently it was this strange place that made them feel quite fresh. A few other people followed Mo Chen without saying a word. As the footsteps got closer, a rather luxurious house appeared in front of everyone. It's here, come in. Mo Chen also said to everyone with a smile. Everyone also walked into the luxurious house one after another. The 9 people came to the house one after another, and then their tense nerves relaxed a little. After all, they had also met the chief executive just now. Since entering the room, Mo Chen has also carefully observed the movements of several people. After all, according to what the general manager of Wujiang said, from the moment they got off the ferry, everything they did here was related to the test results. A person's future achievements and talents must be related to many factors such as his behavior. What is a spirit bead? Xiao Yang also asked. The so-called Ling Lingzhu is an item specially used by some sects to test the talents of their disciples. It is said that this bead is very valuable. And on our Do-Di continent, as long as everyone has Do-Chi since birth, even if they haven't specially cultivated soul power, they will have some soul power. It's just that the strength and weakness of this soul force vary from person to person, and it's hard for ordinary people to find out. You also said. When he was on the Do-Chi continent, Xiao Yang only knew that the soul levels of their pharmacists were Mortal Realm, Spirit Realm, Heaven Realm, and Emperor Realm. Each realm is divided into 3 subgrades: Early Stage, Middle Stage, and Great Perfection. Spiritual Realm, the 8th grade pills can be made in the Heaven, the 9th grade pills can be made in the Heavenly Realm, and the Emperor grade pills can be made in the Emperor Realm. After thinking about it, Xiao Yang also came to Mo Chen, and just wanted to test it, but unexpectedly Wang Zhong and several people suddenly appeared in front of him, and then moved their eyes sharply at Xiao Yang, as if to signal something. Xiao Yang nodded knowingly upon seeing this, so he had no choice but to do it. Wang Zhong, the soul power is 4. Mo Chen also said softly. Compared to Wang Zhong, he was not surprised at all. After all, the power of the soul is something intangible and illusory. He is more willing to spend more time practicing swordsmanship than the sword behind him. Sun Ming, soul power is 3. Mo Chen also spoke slowly. Hihi, you old reckless man, your soul power is actually so much weaker than mine. Wang Zhong said to Sun Ming with satisfaction. Soul power is not suitable for me, but it's the most suitable for me. Sun Ming also grinned, not at all displeased by Wang Zhong's taunting. And even though your soul strength is 4, you seem to be stronger than me. Why don't we go out and fight once? Sun Ming also smiled honestly. Wang Zhongwen also hurriedly shut up when he heard the words. Although he was a sword idiot, he didn't want to fight Sun Ming, because when they were still in the 7 major cities, the two often fought each other, so they were familiar with each other. The bloodline of a warrior is no joke. Even though he has mastered some knacks of sword intent, Wang Zhong doesn't care about the physical damage he suffers when he fights. Mueller, the soul power is 5. Shen Shu, the soul power is 5. Monster, soul power is 6. Liu Yin, soul power is 6. Feng Yi, the soul power is 7. Yueru, the soul power is 7. Mo Chen looked at the people in front of him and shook his head. Although it is good that the soul power is 7, but to win the name of the best 5th-class talent, obviously the soul power is the most important here, and the least is also necessary. Only a soul power of 8 is possible. So he looked helplessly at the 8 people in front of him. Xiao Yang looked at himself slightly. Even if Feng Yi and Yu were only rated as 7 in terms of the power of their Emperor Realm souls, then if he was fully calculated, maybe 8 would be the limit, but it is useless to think so much now, then go up one step ahead, looking at Mo Chen. Senior brother Mo, I haven't tested it yet. Xiao Yang also spoke out as if he noticed that Mo Chen's eyes suddenly dimmed, with an absent-minded look. Oh, look at how impatient I am, I remembered it wrong. I thought the test was over, ha ha ha. Mo Chen was also laughing. Outstanding people, the resources they can get will be very rich, but they can't be treated differently just because they are mediocre talents, otherwise they will be known by the people above, but they have violated Xian Santian's taboo. Come on, just follow the way they were before. Speaking of which, Xiao Yang also closed his eyes and calmed down, and then communicated the power in his soul realm to move towards the suction bead in Mo Chen's hand. In the dark room, with the appearance of Xiao Yang's soul power, it instantly became brighter. Mo Chen was also shocked by the sudden and huge soul power, and then changed his lazy state just now and carefully stared at the suction bead in his hand. Humph, pretending to be mysterious. Mueller was also very unhappy with Xiao Yang's actions. After all, he was defeated by Xiao Yang in the ruins before, and then his father went to Yu's house to arrest Xiao Yang, and was given a great gift by Xiao Yang. Therefore, he was extremely resentful towards Xiao Yang. This kid, why do you feel that your soul power has improved a bit? Wang Zhong also said, it is obvious that the soul power that Xiao Yang has released now is stronger than when he was in Qingcheng and the ruins. I heard that in addition to his powerful soul, Xiao Yang is also a first-grade emperor alchemist. Feng Yi was obviously surprised. She had heard this before, but she didn't take it to heart after all. A pharmacist, the most basic 3 conditions for refining medicine, materials, fire, and soul perception. Xiao Yang owns the materials and fire, but as for soul power, Feng Yi will definitely not believe it. Just looking at it at this time, Feng Yi also frowned slightly. Obviously, this countless evidence shows that this Xiao Yang is very likely to be a first-rank emperor alchemist. Even if he can reach the first emperor rank at a young age, his future achievements are also limitless. Feng Yi also covered her surprised lips, and then looked at Xiao Yang beside her, as if she had made a decision in her heart. I wonder how much Xiao Yang can achieve this time? Sun Ming also said curiously. According to my speculation, since Feng Yi is the soul of the emperor, Xiao Yang's soul power is too much stronger than hers, so it is not surprising to evaluate it as 8. Yaromai also played with her fingers and then put on a temptation. Human arc. Is it an 8? It's really amazing. It is worthy of being a pharmacist of the first rank of the emperor. Several people were also constantly chatting. Mo Chen stared at the spirit-absorbing orb in his hand and suddenly found that the spirit-absorbing orb began to change. Unlike others who were slow, this time it was changing rapidly. 8. A striking number appeared on the suction bead. Sure enough, said several people who had already completed the test. When Xiao Yang heard this, he was also gathering in the spirit-absorbing orb, devoting all the soul power in his body. Seeing this, Mo Chen didn't have time to rejoice when he saw the spirit-absorbing bead in his hand beating slowly, and then everyone saw Mo Chen's eyes staring at the spirit-absorbing bead. 9. It's actually 9. Mo Chen also shouted with joy. It's not over yet, Yueru said with sharp eyes. Xiao Yang, whose eyes were tightly closed, had previously mobilized all the soul power in the soul realm in his body to irrigate the spirit beads, but now he is powerless to open his eyes. Hearing Mo Chen's words, Xiao Yang also nodded in satisfaction, and just about to open his eyes, he was shocked by a force in his body. Because he suddenly discovered that in the deep part of his body, in the place of Nagongwen, a force also gathered crazily towards the spirit-absorbing orb. And Mo Chen, who was overjoyed, obviously did not find this power. However, just when that power was injected into the spirit-absorbing orb, the original 9 on the spirit-absorbing orb suddenly changed to 10. This video will end here.